GSL is back! They already played through the round of 12, I believe, which had 2 groups like last season. And now they are into the round of 8. So we got Rogue in the top left and GuMiHo in the bottom right. There was a pretty significant gap, I believe, for GSL because of all the tournaments that were happening. Everything has been squeezed into the announcement of EWC and the Pro Tour no longer happening, and EWC actually happening. So way more crammed in than usual, resulting in some really weird scheduling and perhaps some tough decisions from players too. Home Story Cup's happening in 2 weeks, and it's hard to say how many players are going to be going after so many of them have traveled so much. Dallas, and then to Bulgaria, and then maybe they go to Home Story Cup, maybe they don't because they have to practice for EWC if they've made it. Or actually, probably what's going to happen is that the global qualifiers are actually next week, I think. And they might want to be practicing for that too. So it's weird. But GSL did have a gap. Now we're going to go back-to-back on groups. This one was played yesterday, and then tonight, I believe, is GSL Group B. So lots of casting to do. And yes, Wicket, as usual, says hello for the first speech of the day. I don't know why. Whenever I start talking to the computer, she's like, okay, time to make an appearance. Everyone's got to know that Wicket's here. Anyway. They did one long GSL season instead of 2 short ones. Yeah, but then, yeah, I guess you could have given the top 2 the GSL, or the EWC qualifier spots. But considering that generally pros like it when there's a second chance, you know, a different day or a different week or something like that, it probably did that for that reason. Or, well, no, actually, you know what it is? It's just because of the amount of players. The amount of players signing up isn't really enough to make a longer season. Longer season meaning more stages. And I would actually say commit to GSL's format. Because, you know, maybe you could extend the tournament if you did like a round robin or something. But like that would be so completely different and kind of take away a little bit of the GSL. I know that everyone has already said that the GSL has already kind of been taken away because so much of the prep is no longer available for these players. But that's actually been the case for a while, ever since they merged semifinals and finals, I would say. But it is pretty extreme now. Now we're just like blitzing through. It's almost like a weekend tournament. But we do have the builds begun, and okay, Rogue gets a free scout. That's pretty nice. Obviously, he was able to see that it was a forward racks. It was just a 1 rack, so not very aggressive at all. But the factory came down pretty damn quickly. Starport already here. That's something that maybe if that Ling had not gotten close, if the Reaper had gotten it, or if the Hellions had come out and the Ling was mistimed, maybe, well, the Hellions would have been out and then the Ling would have known, actually. But the Overlord's all the way over here. So without that Ling Scout, maybe you don't get that confirmation on the Starport at the very least. And instead, Rogue knows that it is a 2-base build for now. Rogue... okay, going for a Roachborn and a Lair right now. I mean, we obviously saw the Starport. Having a slightly faster Overseer can sometimes be a play here for Zerg players, but this seems really fast. He's just looking at Evolution Gibber, though, so we are seeing perhaps more defense opted, and then maybe into that +1 Carapace. Wait, did I see... I'm not seeing the Overlord. I thought he had a 3rd hatch. And I guess that was the Overlord on the minimap. Man, I'm completely blind. So GuMiHo actually sees this. Okay, tries to get the grenade close enough to the Queen that's actually blocking. Couldn't do it without giving up the Reaper. And even if the Reaper had died, no guarantee it would have gotten close enough with the grenade. Kind of cute moment right there, but not going to work out. The Hellions will not be able to get in. Those Hellions, extra eager to get in for 2 reasons. One, something suspicious is happening, right? There's no 3rd hatch. That's a little weird, even though it's not totally... unknown in this matchup. It is a different way of playing, let's say. And then 2, chances are that they're going to try and be greedy behind this, and they will not have, for instance, Ling speed, which is known. GuMiHo knows that. The Ling has been speedless for so long. And so trying to get in there when their roaches are not yet built, maybe they don't even build the roaches, they're like that greedy, knowing that they can't be attacked, would have been free farm for the Hellions on top of the drones, but denied. Unfortunate. Mech is coming out here for GuMiHo. That's not a terrible surprise, considering that it is GuMiHo. GuMiHo is still the one that is mostly going mech in any matchup. But then we do still have that Cyclone bug, which makes it a little bit okay, well, that's kind of sucks right there. Losing 6 drones when you had that early of a lair. The Overseer, I guess, was forming and then did not move to the main fast enough, and the Spore Crawler was also slightly behind in timing. That's, that just really sucks, actually. This was supposed to be kind of locked down. Maybe the Banshee could have gotten some drones on the gas geyser, but that was really supposed to be it. Certainly not 6 of them. Rogue is going to go straight up Roach Hydra. Okay, this is not something that GuMiHo would be expecting. But again, it's not completely unheard of. Trying to get back to trying to expedite to lurkers has been a thing that I think we saw it in the Bulgaria tournament as well. Which I'm going to need a faster way to say its tournament name, because not only is it a tournament name in a language I don't speak, but it's also like 5 words long, so I don't... Bellamgens, I guess is what I can call it. I don't know. Anyway, so GuMiHo, obviously a little scared of what he's been seeing. This could be a roach push, you know? And does get a bunker. It seems kind of fun to see a bunker out in the front. You already have a wall. You're going mech. You're building tanks because you're more worried about them being aggressive. But, I mean, that is a little extra. The Marines are a little more helpful. And actually, if this was, for instance, a really fast push with maybe like a drop, like a queen drop, this could take up a... This could take a lot. This could take a lot of time for things to be breaking through. But it's really important that GuMiHo is doing what he's doing. Not because it's good. It's just important to note this. So Rogue, he set up this potentially aggressive maneuver when he is being aggressive here. He's not going to be trying to build bar drones behind this going to lurkers. This is actually just a Roach Hydra push. Are we back in like 2013? Are we on merry-go-round? Like, what the hell is this? Okay, so actually him going tanks is actually, it's important and it's good. It is very good. It's very important. Because I don't believe that Rogue breaks through this. Now that tanks are out, sieged up, there was an attempt to get to that 3rd CC, but the Banshees are also helping as 3 Vikings were made. I'm not completely sure why 3 Vikings were made, but they were. And they are going to take care of the Overseer. I guess he was expecting that drop. Yeah, the bunker in the front. The Vikings as well. He was expecting Overlords to be coming through here, bringing Queens too. That must be what it is. Instead, they help out by taking out the Overseer, which I don't think would have been the main plan of building 3 Vikings, but could have been, I guess. Very, very odd StarCraft game we're looking at right now. So if GuMiHo had just completely disregarded any amount of scouting that he did, closed his eyes and said, I don't care what you're doing, I'm doing what I want to do, he probably was going to go into battle mech. And in fact, he is adding on the Cyclone upgrade right now, and we'll be adding on a little battle mech as we go for maybe more of that map control, right? But he would have gone immediately into battle mech. He would have gone into pressure. He would have put Rogue on the back foot. Rogue, with the opening that he did, really caused more confusion on GuMiHo's side, really caused more fear that was very warranted, obviously. And so GuMiHo made the wise decision to actually go into tanks instead of Cyclones. That does mean that there's a period of time where he has very little map control, going for this, what we'd call kind of, I guess, a standard mech, but battle mech really has been more popular if you go mech lately. You don't have a lot of that map control. You got some Hellions running around, maybe your Banshees are saved, and they are adding little bits of damage. That's nice, but it's not a lot. The battle mech really applies a lot more pressure, forces the Zerg player to decide between army and drones, forces them to reconsider grabbing that extra hatchery just because they think they can. Because against a mech player, you could actually do a lot, and that's exactly what Rogue is doing because he's seen that it is tank mech. Now, his attack off of, I believe it was 53 drones, was basically a failure. I mean, it didn't stop the 3rd CC from mining, it hardly killed any units, it was a failure. But he did at least get GuMiHo into a more defensive position. So now that Rogue can go back into droning, he does. There's a time where he actually pumped out 15 drones at once, so he is up to 80. Unfortunately, GuMiHo is so comfortable. So this is like, yeah, you kind of got this gap where the mech player is not going to attack you, and hopefully you can just explode macro-wise. But, the mech player also was having a good time here. They deflected an attack. They've been calmly, steadily building up their SCV count, so they're also almost at 82 SCVs. They're building SimCity. They're building extra command centers. This is still very scary for Rogue. But what can happen when it is tank mech is that it just isn't very... It doesn't attack very often. It could GuMiHo could actually be attacking right now as he reaches 180 supply to maxed out. You usually max out as you push. You could move out. We can see very clearly isn't. So what this means is Rogue actually gets that time to ideally equalize this game. If the mech push had happened at 180 supply, I think Rogue is actually in some decent amount of trouble. He made sure to get those Vipers first in case he was being attacked. He could start picking off those tanks. Blinding Cloud could come in. All those good things, right? But we're not getting that quick of an attack. GuMiHo really going late game mode as he continues building SCVs. What the? Do you need that many? Do you need 90 SCVs? I guess you do. When you get 4 bases up, lickety split, and then the 5th one also seems assured, I guess you do. 3 starports also coming down, so we're going to have a transfer over into battle cruisers. I was going to say battle mech, but battle cruisers. That's always interesting. Obviously, the Viking count from earlier was added on to, and it's going to be helpful against the Vipers. A couple of abducts on them does cull the numbers, but this push in, you know, it's only going to grab so much for the Zerg player. That's a choke. That is a choke. And there was a depth of tanks that Rogue perhaps underestimated to a certain degree. There is a certain amount of leeway for the Zerg player generally. They have the bigger bank, they have the stronger economy, and they're going to be trading out their army for tanks in the hope that that will eventually crumble the mech army. It's not really this game, though. Rogue does not have that much of a bank. Really none. Rogue does not have a stronger economy. And so losing that amount of resources for what is not going to be a break. It's just, even if he pushed all the way through, you're talking about more tanks reinforcing on this high ground and a planetary to break through too. And I don't think he'd ever break through with enough units to actually take care of that. I mean, Rogue is actually in a real pickle at this moment because what he's doing is just ramming his head into a brick wall. There is no cleverness about this. There's no trying to get out of position about this. This is just trying to throw his units forward and kill as many tanks as possible, which he is doing. GuMiHo, despite being on 90 SCVs, has still had some trouble replacing these units as fast as he would like, probably because he did add on those 4 starports and has actually not been given the opportunity to get to them, whatever he planned on getting with them. What I was to say, these battle cruisers, it's very far off by now, and the Rogue's army is actually going to push through to a certain degree. To a certain degree. GuMiHo is forced to pull the SCVs. He's got plenty of them to give away. The command center is still available as well, so mules can be dropped. Rogue actually pushing through that was something. It was something. But remember that he is also not on that incredible bank that a Zerg player would usually be on. You know, if he was on 5,000, 5,000 and he pushed through that, whoa, GuMiHo's in trouble. GuMiHo's in a lot of trouble. But really, this is a fairer trade, I would say, than usual. That instant remax that really scares Terran players and mech players in particular isn't going to happen. Rogue was also planning a potential transition himself, don't forget. Something that might actually help deal with tanks, for instance, like Broodlords, and certainly would not be able to afford that now. So both of them can't really afford to move on to the next stage of their composition. That's okay, I don't know what's happened there. Scans going around seeing just how much of the map Rogue has taken. This one very underdeveloped in the drones. You might want to move the drones. We've seen that now. That's very common for Zerg players. Move the drones from the safe bases to the unsafe bases. Haven't seen that, and the bottom left base also has not yet been taken. GuMiHo, by the way, lost those tanks, decided to transition not into battle cruisers, which he's still waiting on the fusion core for that one, but actually into cyclones. We got into battle mech finally. And it might seem a little odd, because sometimes you see battle mech first, mech tank after, but actually, when we do see this mech style, Battle mech actually comes back. Just giving that mobility, being able to punish a little bit more if the Zerg player invests into the push. We see this a lot. And it actually can trip up someone who's also trying to go into Broodlords, because suddenly, yeah, they're spending so much money trying to replace these roaches, trying to just buy time, that they really can't afford to go into Broodlords anyway. The Infestors are definitely the right call, and Rogue was smart to get them lickety-split, realizing the battle mech transition was on the way. But the Infestors are not quite getting those fungals. The Cyclone's still taking out a lot of roaches. Now we got tanks back on the way as well, however, and this could be a really great combination. A lot of Cyclones went down, but adding just 4 tanks, actually, just those 4 tanks as an anchor here, probably would have meant that the army actually stays here. This army might have to leave, especially with the fungals, but very little backing up those fungals, so maybe it doesn't. More reinforcements on the way. We do have a Ling run by trying to hit this third CC, denying that SCV mining, but there's still so much more on the other bases. A fifth base also temporarily denied, but it is temporary. Queen's brought to the front line to help deal with the Banshees. Unfortunately, some of them did go down. Rogue is running out of money, and the battlecruiser swap is finally on the way. GuMiHo did lose a chunk of his army, but instead of replacing it with the bank that he has, he is going to start his transition over into battlecruisers. Narrow Parasite is on the way. It does seem like Rogue anticipates a lot of these maneuvers. It really feels that way. The way that he is getting this important technology, just, let's call it like a half step ahead of GuMiHo. And I do think it's a half step because it's not quite, it's not the pummeling you would want to see. And that also has to go back to Rogue just never getting a big bank. His economy was stunted from the earlier portion of this game. But if he had a big bank, if he was able to remax and add the fungals for the battle mech transition, and then remax and add the neural parasite for the battlecruiser transition, like, he would be pummeling GuMiHo at this point. But he also needs that time to breathe, which GuMiHo is trying not to give him. A little bit of time, so we got to almost max out Zerg army, finding a decent amount of battle mech, actually, as it pushed through into the hatchery. Got the kill, though. The tank on the top side is going to be destroyed. More Hellions are appearing, which, you know, not really what you want against Roach Ravager, but I guess it does body block to a certain degree. Battlecruisers appear. Now, they'd be quite scared. This actually was kind of bold. The teleport, not so much. The teleport isn't as bold because the infestors are clearly not going to be there, but the infestors could have had neural parasite right there. And actually, it was seconds away. We knew that. GuMiHo didn't. GuMiHo teleports now to where the infestors definitely aren't. And they'll be grabbing that hive by the looks of things. Scans ahead, sees the infestors. What's he going to do? He can't teleport, so he has to leave. And he leaves too late. He leaves too late. One battlecruiser will be going down here. Second battlecruiser, third battlecruiser, all going to be attacking each other. However, there's very little anti-air. Where are the infested Terrans? All right, we're not in 2013, so sorry. This is going to take a very long time. In fact, it's a little comical looking at this point. The army was going back, but there's literally one Hydra. So these battlecruisers, you know. All right, then. Big attack on the right side as the battlecruisers drew my attention away. GuMiHo is trying to get to this gold base, which is going to be partially blocked with the Xel'Naga, but also you get the Xel'Naga. GuMiHo is going to be going up to 7 bases with that one, as this orbital is finally mining. Rogue at the bottom left, but has yet to send the drones over there. He did finally saturate this base to the top, but I think it's more of a problem of him just running out of minerals in his initial bases. This isn't the preemptive move the drones to the more fragile location, move them away when it gets attacked. This is just him needing to move the drones. Otherwise, they're not going to have minerals to mine from. GuMiHo now with a lot more tanks doing a slow push up. Oh god, the Roach Hydra just basically ran into the Hellbats as well as the tank fire. Battlecruisers coming up as well, and the infestors, where are they? 15 infestors. They spent they didn't even kill them! They didn't even kill the battlecruisers! It took so long! Oh my god, they didn't even get a chance to use their Yamatos. They were waiting on it the entire time. And so the battlecruisers, unlocked from the consistent neurals, now do have a couple of Yamatos. That is so silly. But also not surprising, infestors just can't kill battlecruisers, and that is game. Rogue taps out, yes, maxed out, yes, with a couple more bases, but the end is nigh. The conclusion was foreseen. And honestly, the entire game was really GuMiHo favored. I know there was that time where Rogue pushed through, even though it didn't look like a great pushing point through that choke, but it all went back to Rogue never having the required amount of bank to really be able to punish. You know, we needed that big follow-up that caught GuMiHo still producing from his factories on their way to try and help out and Lings get the surrounds, whatever it is, right? And Rogue couldn't do that. And then the game still felt maybe doable with the infestors. A couple of big fungals, a couple of bigger neural parasites. But those infestors actually, they hit like a wet noodle. They didn't really do very much. So yeah, Rogue, like I said, it was like he was half a step ahead as far as the technology he needed. He technically got it before GuMiHo's army showed up, but just not that far ahead of time. And certainly not with the proper backing of a Zerg macro behind it. So, really tough game for Rogue. Maybe he was hoping that GuMiHo would just blindly go battle mech. Although, to be fair, I'm not even sure he saw that it was mech. So it could have just been that he hoped that there was, A, no defenses, and B, something more vulnerable than tanks, basically. But yeah, that was a tough game for Rogue, and GuMiHo decided to play out the super macro game, wins game 1. Let's go to game 2. Game number 2 is here on ley lines. Top right, Rogue. Bottom left, GuMiHo. Very odd game. Very odd game. Past the oddity of the opening from Rogue, it was a bit clear. Just a couple of like, well, you know, maybe there's a chance here for Rogue, but missing all the foundations that a Zerg would need to really take advantage of that. So, you know, I'm not saying I could have, could have not been wrong. I could have. Like, he could have pushed through. GuMiHo could have not macroed well enough, I guess, and been caught with a production line. Trying to protect that was his third, I believe, that was under attack, right? Yeah. And then that does cause a lot of problems. And it does open up a lot of room for Rogue to further recover from the opener that he chose. So he recovered in the sense that he got to the drone count, he got to the hatchery count, and he got a maxed out army with Vipers, but you need more than that. You need a lot of hatcheries, you need a lot of that map control, you need a lot of points of contention that aren't close to your base when they finally push you, so you have that time to remax with the bank you're supposed to have, and that just never was there. So even though Rogue did manage to open up an opportunity, it wasn't really an opportunity. And then he knew it was coming. He knew what he needed to do. He didn't have the tools to do it. So Rogue was very clearly in the know how to handle a mech player, but he had hurt himself so much going for that very odd Roach Hydra push. You know, we've seen the 2-base Roach game versus Terran before. Again, it's not common, but we've seen it. And we've seen some faster Hydra play as well, and perhaps into those lurkers. That's what I guessed, and that did not happen. What we haven't seen too much of is a very legitimate just Roach Hydra. All in, really, off of 53 drones. That was a surprise to me. Probably supposed to be around 60 because the Banshees did kill 6 drones, but still, the point is, either way, it would have been a very low drone count. And it was right into someone who could not have been more prepared for it. GuMiHo would have had to have closed his eyes to all the weirdness that was happening, not played defensive enough, and then also gone for the wrong composition. Because, again, you know, he could have been defensive, he could have been scared, and he could have still built Cyclones because of whatever reason. Just hypothetical here. And the Cyclones would have had trouble against that, because Cyclones aren't great when they're forced to defend, when they run out of room. But GuMiHo, of course, made the right call, and he was like, if I'm going to be attacked, I'm going to build some tanks. I'm not pressuring you, you're pressuring me, so tanks are the way to go. And then there was really nothing that Rogue could do. Well, this is interesting. Rogue playing some wacky Zerg here. 3cc for GuMiHo. This is a much more standard build. Not that his last build was super weird. It just is a little different, you know, frontline barracks, factory faster, that type of thing. But this is very bread and butter. 3cc, Hellions, and Banshees on the way. The scouts did happen in the natural, but, you know, missed the third. Command center upgrade. Figured the third was on the way. Or this could be another Roach opener. But that could be checked later, right? As long as you're fairly sure it isn't a 2-base all-in, which, to be fair, it could be. So the first 2 Hellions should be sent out to scout for that. Yes, and they are. That's definitely what you need to do. But the Hellions are going to get a really weird scout. Because, yeah, Rogue is going to show a 2-base Roach play again. But it's actually 3-base. And that is quite clever. You know, the expected result off of the kind of a 2-base Roach, there's a lot of Lings on the way. That is a lot of Lings. Okay. Is that... Okay, no, Armory's on the way too. This is just getting all kind of weird. Is that they're not going to get their third hatch very quickly. But they are going to be very protected. They might be attacking you as well, so you kind of got to respect that, right? And then you kind of get a slower build-up to the economy. But eventually you do get a big economy. And it's not a slow of a build-up, because it's not a 2-base build. All those lings that Rogue built, by the way, just bypassing the Hellions on the front line. No scouts on this whatsoever. Just completely wide open, natural. Oh, that Hellion did not stand a chance. Second Hellion does get saved, but unfortunately these SCVs, not so much. Hellion's a bit late to being pulled back. They were prepared to go for the Hellbat push. This literally could not have been better timing. Those Hellions, I think, were just like seconds away from pressing the Hellbat transition button. Marines do help out a little bit, I suppose, as well. This is very clear now what GuMiHo's plan was, by the way. Rogue's like, oh, you're going to Hellbat attack me? Ha, chiffa chiffa. This worked out even better than expected. And now Rogue has plenty of time to prepare a defense against any Hellbats that would be on the way. I doubt they would happen. They are going to be used defensively because GuMiHo no longer knows what the hell is going on. He actually has to use a scan because he's so in the unknown. You know, those Lings took away not just a couple of SCVs. 9 SCVs went down. That's not terrible, actually. That could have been worse. But they also took away the scouting that GuMiHo is going to get, and it also further takes away the chance that GuMiHo will be like, hey, shouldn't the third base be down? Because a scan reveals one place, Hellions on the front line, Hellbats on the front line, might have actually seen the lack of thirds, and he would have been like, this doesn't make any sense. But now he will never see it. Rogue's aggression, blinding GuMiHo in this game, is, I think, going to lead to a lot of success. Now, GuMiHo with 3 CC, as I said, going to recover those SCVs. The SCV loss actually is not that bad. It's the total lack of information that's really bad. A Viking goes across the map, a Medevac goes across the map. This is at least something. But it's not going to be able to see that hidden third base. And of course, fourth base will come up eventually. Even a fifth might be done by the time GuMiHo really gets a proper scout. Overseer comes in, sees a very good sign. I would call this a very good sign. The command center is still in the main base. It did not take the third as fast as it theoretically would want to if you were not forced to play defensive, if you didn't have those Lings surprise you, if you figured Rogue was just playing very macro-oriented, right? There are some units coming across the map. Actually, more being built as well. Rogue on 63 drones, so keep in mind he's still not on that very good macro basis. But this is an appropriate amount of pressure to stop that third CC, and then he can go back into droning. Which is exactly what Rogue is doing. Rogue is really, really playing GuMiHo at this point. GuMiHo scans what looks like a fourth, I would say. You know, he scans this, sees it building, is like, oh, that fourth is really late, I'm okay. Figures the third is over there. I mean, and it's true, it is a fourth. It's just that by the time he tries to kill this fifth, he's going to realize it was actually not a third, and anyways, point is, droning has been happening this entire time. Mining has been happening this entire time. And GuMiHo did not get any amount of punish on this play. As I said, GuMiHo is blind, and Rogue is just playing with him at this point. 69 drones is good. Still would need more as the fourth base finishes up. I'm sure he'll grab it. Hellbat attack more into the main base. Why not? Something that's pretty cheap as long as you don't lose the medevac. I don't know why GuMiHo, by the way, is going this many Vikings. That's the other thing I think was a good sign from that Overseer scout. You're like, the third TC is still not down. I can go punish that. I can go stop that from happening. His production also is not down. At max, he actually has 3 factories, but he should have 5. You know, off of 3 CC and then going up to 8 even after his 4th CC. That's still delayed. And then the Vikings are being produced. Rogue saw the starport still on a reactor. And I'm not sure why that many Vikings were produced. I had an idea last game that he was just really most scared about some type of Overlord drops, but if it is to kill Overseers so the Banshees can help out, it's so early on. It's so early on when you're not in a great position to. Like, maybe that was the plan last game, and he was just like, no, I'm going to get Vikings and make sure that he can't see my Banshees. Okay, all right, okay, fine. He was in a much better spot. He was kind of seamlessly going to his third. He was very easily defending an attack that Rogue was sending his way. Things are just different. This time around, that was a lot of money while you were still stuck on 2 bases to put into Vikings, which aren't that helpful. It's a pretty small army here from Rogue, so I'm not sure it's... Oh, that's the rest of the army! Okay, there we go. Big surround coming in Okay, that was actually perfect. GuMiHo stands absolutely zero chance. Oh, yeah. That was it. That was it. No amount of cloaked banshees will save you now. Maybe if you had 10, but 2 will not cut it. 31 SCVs go down. 9 drones go down as GuMiHo got a Hellion run by in at the same time, but this is game over. Rogue just played this very well. GuMiHo never stood a chance. And it really sucks too because GuMiHo almost played into it. I'm not saying that the Hellbat attack that he had planned, you know, if he didn't do it, he would have been totally fine, no problem. But it was an added difficulty in an already very difficult game to try and do a Hellbat attack that ends up failing and then it's thus out of position for a Ling run by that kills 9 SCVs. Then you're forced to pull back, then you have no scouting, you don't know what the follow-up is, you're forced to use scans, actually, instead of mules, which we know most pro-gamer Terrans don't want to do, basically, at any point. It just was very awkward. Kind of almost a flipped script, because that first game with Rogue, he was really awkward in the first game. And now GuMiHo, perhaps even more awkward and even less likely to win the game, gets totally demolished. Rogue with a great answer in game number 2. Tokamak. Top right, we have GuMiHo. Bottom left, it is Rogue. Technically, GuMiHo never saw that hidden third. He was pinned back for so long. And all of his harassment was queued to the top left, not to the bottom right. That's a bit crazy. GuMiHo might have had a moment to check what happened in that game. If you could see the build order, which a lot of times they turn off build order checks, but if you could see the build order, you could just see the third hatchery was actually built, and you're going to be like, wait, what? If you just press rewind at the end of the game, he also could have seen the whole map and be like, oh, shit. So, of course, the jig is up. You can't do it again. But it was a really good use of it. I really liked that. The setup was there from the first game, because you did go for that roach opener. So GuMiHo anticipated the roaches, anticipated no speed as well, so the speedlings were a double surprise. They were surprised that there was speed, and they were surprised that there were that many of them. Just a game that worked out probably exactly how you envisioned it. Exactly how you played it in practice. But it is a one-time use. You should not be able to get all the things correct again. You know, you can't hide that third hatch. GuMiHo is actually going to try and scout for it. You can't depend on that many Lings getting into the natural. You know, GuMiHo could pretty easily send 2 Hellions out to scout, knowing that Rogue's being a little tricky today, and then keep 4 Hellions back at home because he knows that Rogue's being a little tricky today. And that would kind of, you know, cut the balance there, and you wouldn't be able to attack with the Hellions, but if you don't think you're going to get a run by with them anyway, it's not that much lost. They both have reason to be scared of each other. That's for sure. But Rogue may be a little less scared in the early game. GuMiHo has been... Right, Captain. Yeah, I mean, 3CCing. Yes, the first game was a faster factory and the starport, but... eventually, 3rd CC did come down, and it wasn't going to be the Hellbat attack there. And the Hellbat attack last game, that never even happened, was off of 3CC, which isn't the worst thing they deal with. Thank you, Joe Pro, for the 68 months. So the Reaper, you know, one of the first things it could do to help scouting for the rest of the game would be get into the main base and see that speed is actually on the way. That would have been not a significant difference maker, I think, in game number 2, but it would have been helpful. You would have been less convinced of the game plan being identical to game 1, because you saw the Roach Warren at the front. You say, oh, it's exactly like game number 1. Well, if you saw speed was on the way too, you'd be like, oh, wait, it's a little bit different. But we're not going to have the Reaper try and jump in there. Just waiting on what the third hatch timing will be. And it does seem like Rogue is gonna try and trick him again in some way. Oh. Interesting. Okay, 3CC211. So that's not going to be a mech build. That's what's interesting about that. GuMiHo has been trying mech every time. Now he's going to change that up. Rogue goes for a very fast lair once again. This is without knowledge that it's a starport because there's no starport. So this is not going to be helpful for that purpose. Is he gonna? Because I think this might be the fastest lair so far. A lot of gas is coming down too, so I was like, is he gonna do Ling Queen drop? But no, that's not gonna happen. And we'll hold off on that. But the faster lair is not gonna be particularly helpful. Roach Warren is coming down in the front. Third hatchery was allowed to be put down. The Reaper did not stop that. I suppose speed was finishing anyway. And GuMiHo, although he did not get a scout on speed, knows the timing. Wisely waited for the Hellions. Still gets a scout. Hey, the third hatch is in fact on the way. Also sees the Roach Warren in the evolution chamber. You know, Rogue, he could be bringing out that +1 Carapace all in. I really like it on this map, though. Not necessarily. I wouldn't like it for the map, but perhaps a surprise. Continuing to... Ooh! Whoa, okay. Spire's coming down. Hellions are actually trying to get in the main base. Oh, no, they do maybe get into the main base. The Reaper, no, he stops to attack. All right. All right. That was very close to a disaster for Rogue, who I wasn't concerned about his drones. Those Hellions and the Reaper were not going to kill many drones, but I was very concerned about the Spire being scouted. Fortunately, Rogue is able to hide that, and the gases shouldn't be a reveal either. If you saw these gases taken lickety-split, maybe you'd be a little weirded out, but now at this point, GuMiHo will probably not be getting that fast of a scout or a scout on those gases at all. Scan on the main base. That'll be the ticket. That'll do it. After the change-up on what Rogue has been doing, the anticipation for yet another change-up. Despite the Roach Warren and the Lucia at the front, GuMiHo's like, I'm not just going to believe you. I'm just going to say, oh, it's Roaches. I don't need to worry about this. Because it's really not. Maybe some Ravagers could be added in, but it is going to be Ling, Baneling, Muta. GuMiHo does have his 2-1-1 reaching its completion. Actually, only sent out one medevac. So it is hitting around the time you would expect, but he keeps another medevac at home. No Hellions here, so that would be why he wants to protect his home base with whatever he can. And while 5 Marines doesn't seem like a lot, now a little 6th Marine helping out. Tucked into a corner, better than nothing. So that was a good split. That was a good division. Kind of what I was pointing to earlier with the Hellions. He does it with the medevac. A little bit of scouting, a little bit of pressure, but also that defense that could make up for, what could only have been maybe 10 Lings. In this case, it's a lot of Lings, and I would still be scared for the SCV's lives, but with the other medevac coming back home, it would not be worth trying to hold position on this to get the kills. Wall was also made lickety-split. Like, there is a little more urgency, I think, in the supply depots on the wall here. For good reason. Armory comes down. He's prepared to take his +2. Actually, he only went 1 engineering bay with this. It is very, very common to do 2. I'm not sure what opportunity that afforded him, though. This actually feels like a mistake more than a build choice. Okay, that's a big attack. Good focus fire on the Banelings. Great focus fire on the Banelings. 3 still survive, however, means we got to get the heck out of town. That was seconds away from being no Banelings. And if there are no Banelings, the Marines probably could have stood their grounds. Combat shields had finished. A good number of them were available. Good number of medevacs, too. That was the attempted surprise. You don't wait for Baneling speed because you hope that they are just so freaking surprised by this that they don't have the time to focus down the Banelings. Which almost happened. Almost. But at this point, GuMiHo is in a pretty rock-solid position, except for his lack of second engineering bay. Which is very purposeful. It is. But I'm just wondering what part of the build it helped out. Did he get a slightly faster additional 2 barracks because of it? Because he has plenty of gas. Which is why I was like, is this a mistake? I don't know, maybe it is a mistake, because he is building it now. But he also would build it at this point. But whatever. Point is, he doesn't have 1-1, and he's not going to go to 2-2 as fast as you would like, but he is still going to have technically faster... I don't think he will have... He technically will have faster upgrades, but usually a big bonus to defending this early push here from the Mutaling Baneling is that you do have also really superior upgrades. But this wasn't the super greediest 3cc 2-1-1 we've ever seen. Not like what Maru was doing in the Dallas, for instance. So it's not that far ahead. It is still going to be ahead by at least 1 upgrade. Mutas will get their flyer attack upgrade. Rogue has saturated his third base. Fourth base is on the way. Unfortunately, when you do this, faster Spire into the Ling Baneling attack, you really don't get that solid foundation. And this is what Rogue has to build up to. By the time he builds up to, let's say, like 85 drones, 5 bases, GuMiHo will probably have a maxed out army. Yeah, I would say a maxed out army with maybe 2-2. And then it's just a problem of Ling, Baneling, Muta actually finding good engagements. We know from the times where these were more meta, although I'm happy we're seeing more Muta games lately, that Mutas are not meant to attack directly. Attempted little Baneling run by, didn't quite work out there. How did that one sneak in? And they're supposed to be harassers. They harass, they harass, they harass until the Terran throws their hands up in the air, gets really frustrated, and runs forward on creep. Just so frustrated they can't deal with it anymore. But Terrans, one thing I would say that has led to the decrease of Muta builds is that it does feel like Terrans got way better at handling that portion of the game. Then Muta just completely disappeared from the meta. Now we're back into them occasionally. Maybe Terrans don't remember it exactly, but I don't know. The push and the pull from Terran players in 2025 seems way better than it was, let's say, in 2020 even. Hatchery was killed, not canceled, as GuMiHo stands his ground. Rogue's probably expecting him just to run away, but GuMiHo with a little split, just enough units, ends up taking that out. Mutas, though, still in the main base, are able to kill 14 SCVs. GuMiHo's 4th CC is done, so even though he is losing out, oh, that's a lot of SCVs to be lost. That's a lot of, okay, well, 24 SCVs and counting, but the medevacs on the front line were also looking for more damage. They do not find very much more. They cannot attack onto that creep. There is too much in the reinforcements. 27 SCVs do go down. That's getting a little troublesome. GuMiHo, perhaps a little dose of overconfidence because he handled the engagement on the would-be 5th. Kind of wanted to push into the 4th. Did not take care of his home as fast as maybe he could have. And does take losses because of it. So I take back that whole being maxed thing that I was talking about. Now, Rogue still isn't in the super ideal position either, to be fair, and that scan just confirmed it. 5th base was killed, now only being planted down. 4th hatchery, not fully saturated. That's a good sign. That scan was a nice little reminder that GuMiHo is still in this game, despite dipping heavily down in supply because of those SCV losses. And the 4th base being done and now being planted, turning into a planetary properly protected, means that you can now have the 4 SCV production. You'll be replacing those pretty quick. And you're still getting to that point where you just have the ultimate Terran army. Ling run by onto the 3rd CC. Unfortunately, no Banelings there, because maybe more of these would have died of that, but better to have the pressure on GuMiHo's side of the map. Continuing to buy more time for Rogue to continue building those drones, completing his 5th, spreading creep as well, which, by the way, pretty lackluster at this point. Queens not really in high number here. 1 died, so this is just consequences of the way that this game has opened. You did not get a lot of queens. We have the injects that are very necessary with this type of style as well, taking up all of their time. Very little devoted to creep spread, and that is a big problem. You need a lot of injects, you usually need a macro hatchery, you also need creep spread. GuMiHo, having been pinned back for as long as he has, might be feeling a little nervous about this game. Lost more SCVs, lost more time being aggressive because he's waiting for everything to be settled, lost the 4th CC for a little while as well. Now again, going to lose a handful of SCVs. But Rogue isn't surpassing him behind this, and these Banelings are going to be, not the most effective right there. That was Rogue hoping that GuMiHo was not paying attention because he was distracted, but GuMiHo not distracted. Concaves, deals with them, a lot of lost gas, which Rogue, to be fair, has plenty of, but just the time to actually remake those Banelings is usually more in question. Banelings are here, but they're going to be going off of creep. At no point did Rogue ever spread the creep during all this harassment, and that's really going to bite him in the ass. GuMiHo at 58 SCVs could also probably just stay on that, by the way, even though he's got 4 command centers, a couple of mules will help take care of that. SCV is still being denied their mining as the Mutas ransack the main base, but this is an army that perhaps GuMiHo could even win with. It's getting a little thin, and that Thor is almost dead, so I don't think so, but it is going to be very, very scary. Rogue has to try and take good connections here. Thor does go down. Marines, though, get a little split. He's going to trade out with the Banelings. More Banelings are being formed here, and that's going to be plenty of Banelings. I think that will do the trick. But Rogue has sunk a lot into this defense while doing, I would say, minimal damage. On the other side of the map, GuMiHo has not lost SCVs in a while by the looks of things, where meanwhile drones are going down. More banelings crashing on in here. They're going to give up their lives for the greater good. Fortunately, can't take out Medivacs or Liberators, meaning that GuMiHo feels like he can still be on the front line, stimming some of his army across the map for this, while leaving some of it at home to deal with the mutas. 23 mutas have died, by the way. Big, big consequences of Rogue constantly being in the main base, but he is holding just barely. Liberator now on top of the drones, realizing there's an opportunity. No queens, mutas are out of position. The Liberator's going to town on the drone line. Rogue finally brings back his entire army, but then GuMiHo does the same thing, finally grouping everything together, all of his reinforcements, all of the remnants. He did lose his 4th command center. He did lose his main as well. Oh my god, we are down to 2 bases for GuMiHo. This is incredibly close. Rogue needs to make a stand right here, and then he's got a chance in this game, but to actually take out this army will be very, very difficult. Bailey's trying to crash in without the help of that creep spread. Thor is taken down. The mutant numbers are too large. The marine numbers looking very, very thin. Medivac's out of juice, and it looks like GuMiHo will not be able to win with this push. Rogue made the right decisions. He did not let up in the bases of GuMiHo with those mutas. The mutas were almost never at home. And that can actually lead to disaster in some other games. But in this case, it was spot on. GuMiHo maybe could have been a bit more patient at times. It is a delicate balance. Now, I was saying that Terrans have gotten better at it as the years go on, but the balance is still difficult to do. The balance of defending against all the harassment, all the run-bys, all the muta run-bys as well, while also making sure to be a threat to the Zerg so they don't simply take over the entire map and then have non-stop Ling Bailing muta, right? Like 5,000 bank, just continuing to throw it at you. But GuMiHo might have been a little over-aggressive because Rogue was, in his own way, a little desperate to find damage. And up until the last, let's say, 2 minutes, it was a real question mark as to who was going to be able to win on these precarious positions. But Rogue holds, and will 2-1 GuMiHo to advance on to the winner's match. It's a TVZ day at GSL. In the top right, we have Solar. In the bottom left, it is Maru. Some of the best Zergs, some of the best Terrans, all in one GSL. Feels good, man. Solar has struggled a bit versus Maru, but I suppose you could say who hasn't. What was their score? DreamHack Dallas. Obviously, Maru won it. Solar, by the skin of his teeth, got to the finals. It was a 4-1. Yes, it was. Yeah. So, yeah, Solar generally struggling versus Maru. Overall, very Maru favored in their history, but every once in a while, Solar is able to win, particularly in a best of 3. Longer series, not favoring him, but best of 3, you can get something going there. So Maru does have to, obviously, respect him, and the Zerg tactics that we saw from Rogue are another reminder that there's some trickiness to the Zerg race after all. Thank you, Pig General, for the 28 months. Maru's going to go for a similar opener to his buddy GuMiHo, which is going to go for the low ground 1-racks expand. Maru and GuMiHo not as close of friends as, for instance, Maru and Byan, but I don't think you can not look at GuMiHo and what he does and be at least a little influenced by some of the things that he does. For instance, mech. Mech might not be the go-to for most Terrans, but GuMiHo has been there every year in StarCraft 2, aside from when we went to military, to remind people, hey, mech actually might not be that bad. And the Cyclone bug does make battle mech better, and it seems like something that just shouts, abuse it, abuse it, abuse it. But we actually haven't seen that much, I would say, abuse of it. And I think of abuse, I think of just literally every single game possible, the Terran player goes battle mech, which has been a meta in days past. But that's not really what we see here. But if, again, you're going to be looking at someone to be like, hey, a reminder, this is pretty good. I mean, GuMiHo's there. I don't know if Solar is really going to be able to copy the exact tricks of Rogue. For instance, on this map, Rogue did go for that hidden third hatch, but I don't think Solar is the type to do that. Solar also, I think, less likely to go for some of these 2-base openers, which kind of set the tone for the last series. Even though, as I've been saying, it's not the most common thing to do. It is seen. It's usually not seen 3 times in a row, and then Rogue was able to make it 3 different things. All off of kind of the basis of, hey, there's a roach born at the front, and I'm on 2 bases, as far as you know. Wow. Well, if there's going to be an influence, it wasn't particularly in the armory build, but oh no. Oh no. Well, if you're going to go a 2-base armory build, then you don't want it to be scouted. Well, that sucks. I feel like you just don't do it at this point. Well, I feel like you don't commit to it. You don't cancel the armory, you know, but you don't expect big things from this. You do it. You send the Hellions out, you turn them into Hellbats, you make the Queens respond, but you don't really think you're going to kill a Queen. This is funny. 4 Marines leading the charge, but nothing to stop them, so... Speed is now done, however, and 18 Lings are on the way. Third hatch, obviously, only just completing means there's not a creep spread. So the Queens would have trouble defending it, but it's so healthy that, you know, it's not going to be a target of the Hellbat push. So inevitably, the Queens will have some room to maneuver, and the Lings are necessary here. It is so early on of a Hellbat push. You're not at 6, 7, 8 Queens, so they do need a little help, but it is just a little help, and I really think this is actually very good play from Solar. Solar doesn't spend all of his time as well as give up the Ling's lives to kill this push, which has no teeth. He protects the Queens for the 2 seconds they needed it, and then was like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna go see if the wall's open. That was really cool. The wall is not open, of course, because we did have the faster wall off with that forward barracks and forward factory, but I really like that idea, and I really like keeping those Lings alive. I mean that you can build drones instead, not have to replace them. Roachborn is coming down because a Hellbat attack is often a precursor to mech, especially in mech metas. Does not take a genius to figure that one out. Stim is being researched, but that is a fake because it is on the front lines. Solar would be wise not to believe that. Which I think he's very much aware. He's like, ah, is it though? Are you though? Are you sure? Are you really though? Are you? I don't know. Even if it's not mech and he has been almost like double bluffed or whatever you want to call it. I mean, a Roach opener is not going to kill a Zerg player. It would be quite a shock if suddenly 2 medevacs showed up though with 16 Marines and you weren't quite expecting that mobility, but it's not that. It is in fact battle mech. And Solar, while not having the confirmation on it, I just feel like, you know, he knows. Just like, kind of nice reminder for the first series of the day, too. This is going to be a thing. And I'm sure Solar's been dealing with it a lot on ladder as well. Maru going deep into the mech here. Battle mech coming out first and foremost as his Hellions are confirming no big attack on the way. You know, again, if there's going to be a big attack, you're going to want to build some tanks. That's what GuMiHo did in the last series. If there's not a big attack on the way, you are then the aggressor. The battle mech is the one that has to be respected. And Solar could, you know, turn this into an attack if he gets an ample opportunity, if the Cyclones dive a little too much and are forced to retreat completely. And that has actually, I think that's how, was that on this map? That is how Solar, no, it wasn't on this map. But that's how Solar got that 1 win in Dallas. So Maru tried to go for a battle mech style, and it looked like it would be very promising, and then all of a sudden, Solar just simply overwhelmed him. We didn't get that. We didn't get the pacing that favored the battle mech. We'll see if we do here. Which is just got constant control, constant scouting, suppressing the hatchery number, suppressing the creep spread, suppressing the max out of the Zerg player. So that when they finally say, okay, well, I can push you. I think I can actually do something here. You have ample time to retreat and get your defenses up and cull as many roaches as you can before the Cyclones are forced to retreat. Very, very annoying stuff for Zerg to deal with, let's be real. They can't do much more about this other than just stand their ground and hope that a couple of corrosive biles hit. That'd be nice. The hatchery is already under half health, meaning that it could be targeted down. 100% could be targeted down. There you go. Dead fourth hatchery. I'm not sure Solar is really planning on getting more drones, though, at this point. I think he is just going to go for an attack. Already slipping by some roaches. Really nice maneuver right here, actually. Slipping those roaches on by. He's going to be able to start the attack and then have something on the back side of the retreating Hellion Cyclone. Very, very nice idea indeed. SCVs are going to plug up the wall for now as the rest of the army comes back home. They could be sandwiched. Ravagers coming in. Not quite. Not quite. Maru finding that third option to retreat off to the right side. And this is about buying time. The more the roaches get all distracted to go different ways, the more effective the cyclones will be, assuming they're all microed, which would usually be a challenge. But I believe Maru has it in him to micro on the right side, the left side, especially his left side being attacked right now. It's going to be some lost mining time. He had to cancel his fourth command center. Solar has to be happy with this, I guess. You know, there's only so much you can feel happy about, I suppose, but you can feel happy about this. It's not quite going to end the game, but this was a pretty good blow to Maru. It also means that Solar no longer has to deal with the battle mech on his side of the map. So he is going to go back into a couple of more drones. Infestation bits on the way, adding on those fungals for later, catching the remnants of the army. Maru just completely surprised by the run-by. The attack on the right side really set something up there for Solar. Because Maru just clearly did not anticipate that. And he did not have the appropriate defenses. That's a big, big loss of mining. Third CC finally back on location as Solar completes his fourth 75 drones as well, and is going to go back into building an army of which he mostly saved. Because he was able to take the battle mech out of that aggressive position. Okay, that's a lot of tanks. That is a lot of tanks and some pretty damn good shots. All right, that wasn't quite the end that Solar was hoping for. Yeah. I can't really blame him for trying, though. He was almost maxed out. And in 6 tanks, it could be a lot, and it could be very little, depending on the positioning. Unfortunately, the positioning right there was quite good for Maru, so Solar is not going to end the game right here, right now. But anyway, Maru couldn't give chase, right? So Solar was able to bully the third CC. He was able to take out the battle mech, able to save his own army, and get all of the stuff back at home, all the foundations set. Hellman's going to go for a run-by, though, and Solar is not prepared for this. Drones are going to have to be pulled. Blue Flame is done, but Roaches, quick to the response, are going to be able to save the majority of the drones. 7 go down, but that was 5 Hellions, was it? So, usually Hellions, you throw on 4 CCs comfortably. If you're pretty sure they can't break your tank setup, maybe that's not a big loss. But we are at a point where that is... You would want to save them for another threat in the future. Or, in this case, save them to turn to Hellbats, help deal with Locusts. The Locusts are here, good number of them as well. Tank's going to focus fire on top of the Roaches. Little Sim City with that barracks is a nice touch. And the Locusts so far, not grabbing as much as you would think. That's actually one of the best defenses off of a stupidly low supply that I have seen. Maru is barely hanging on here. His fingertips are getting awfully raw, hanging on the side of the rock ledge. This is Solar finally using, like, both of his hands to, like, pry Maru's hands off the ledge, you know? Like, that's finally going to do him in. Right now, Solar's trying to do the whole, like, stomping on each hand right now. Maru is so close to death, it's insane. But Maru is stabilizing. He's got a 4th CC down that Solar has not checked. And these Locusts are a little underwhelming. They do get that tank. 2 tanks still available. More SimCity available too. Battle Mech has gone back into. That's why we have such a low number of tanks. And this attack is not gonna get the job done. This actually was a colossal loss of life on the Zerg side. Okay, at least he scouts the 4th CC. He does scout the 4th CC. That's not a freebie that you can give Maru. That should never happen again as well. There should always be a check on that 4th. Maru is going to need to defend the 4th fair and square in the future. Locust once again coming in. They're going to go after the one lone tank, and they will not quite get it. So a couple of corrosive bios do hit the battle mech, however. But the Roach Ravager numbers are so low because the Swarm Host taking up so much of the supply, and there's the punish from the battle mech. The Roaches will not be able to escape, but the ICVs have been pulled, some of them going down. Maru also just simply desperate to get to a 4th CC at this point. He must be mining out of his main and natural, 100%. Solar might not be able to kill this guy, but he's making sure he's maimed. We are close to the knight bunny hopping on one leg with no arms. Very close. Roach is going in single file, probably wouldn't be the best idea, but now we're gonna collect themselves, gonna get the Locust back into action too. And Maru can't possibly survive. The 4th CC goes up to the top left and Solar isn't checking it. He's not checking! He's not checking! The Locusts are jumped upon as well. 1 moment's given and 4, 5, 6 Swarm Hosts went down? Oh my god! I can't believe 6 Swarm Hosts went down. Solar was getting maybe a little content leaving those Swarm Hosts where they were, but that was a huge punish. And the Roach Ravager also, again, being punished here as it tries to go over. Now sees, oh my god, he got onto the 4th CC. Stop this. The Cyclones are getting all these lock-ons. Solar also, keep in mind, not on a big bank. He has been trading so often. Locust on the backside, but not nearly as many as before. A few Hellbats giving up their lives to save the Cyclones. And the 4th CC, excuse me, is going to be, once again, denied. But Solar is not in a... I mean, he's in a better economic position, but it doesn't feel that way because he's losing so many resources. I'm actually surprised it's only 4,000 difference. I thought it'd be way more just because Solar is struggling to get totally maxed out, finally getting back up there. And he's also struggling to get a bank. 72 drones is pretty good. I guess you could argue he could be up to more like 80. But, you know, that's where the rub is. If you let up to get your economy even better, do you let up too much and then suddenly there's too big of a mech army to deal with? That would be the problem. Fungal does come down. That might be the ticket here. Not a whole lot of battle mech left over. No tanks to fall back to either, but more Cyclones coming in. They were defending the 4th CC. I didn't expect that. Solar didn't expect it. Once again, fleeing from the Cyclones. 14 of them in action. Swarm Hosts on the wrong side of this engagement too. This time around, do not die. Not a lot of protection for these Cyclones as the Hellbats are all gone. But if they keep out of range, which is a task when there's Fungals around, then they can just go to town. And that seems to be the case here, barely holding on once again. I've run out of analogies. I no longer know exactly what position Maru is in. He's very close to being a zombie, perhaps. We have lost all of our limbs. Our torso is maimed severely. Our head no longer has eyes. I don't know. It's just, it's not a pretty sight. And somehow he still lives. The 4th CC should never be mining. Swarm Hosts are chased after because that's the freebie. But honestly, Solar, I think, has moved on from the Swarm Hosts. They are no longer useful. He is moving on to complete Roach, Hydra, Infester. No upgrades, by the way. Oh my god, that is something that's been missing for Solar. 2-2 from Maru has been a lot of what's been keeping him in this game. You know, the attack doesn't affect the lock-on, sure, but it does, I think, add a lot when the opponent has 0 armor. 0. And I think Solar, you know, he's been so caught up, as I have been as well. Like, I only just noticed the upgrade difference, but he's been so caught up, understandably, just trying to end the game. Being like, I can't let this guy recover. I can't let this guy recover. I can't let this guy recover. That, at first, it was maybe not the best economy you could have had. And he still doesn't have, 80 drones, not 70, but it's doing the trick. And then it's, oh my god, I never got upgrades. You know what would have really been helpful, what would have been worth the investment? Probably an upgrade. Hindsight 2020 on that one, though, because he's just so busy trying to stop Maru from ever recovering in this game. Attack in the natural, believe it or not, could go poorly. This is going to be a thick wall. It's thick. Cyclones are going to be fungaled, and there's more fungals to come, though. But this is the army half distracted by the factories on the front line. Half of the army... Okay, good. Okay, good. Is attacking the Cyclones, and Maru does finally give up. I was worried that Solar would push in too aggressively and then just be locked in place against the Cyclones. But finally, Maru taps out, and I feel like Solar is probably happy about, like, he's like, I know I was gonna kill you. I'm like 98% sure I was gonna kill you, but you tapping out, that was nice. Thanks, man. Because, like, there was still a little doubt in my mind. 17 minutes in which 8 of them, Solar was winning, definitely, for sure. And you're like, okay, thank God he GG'd. Okay, we're good. Because Solar absolutely should have won that game and finally does. So, Solar 1-0. Maru has a way of, even if he's dying, of being really, really intimidating. In the top right of Tokamak, it is Solar. In the bottom left, it is Maru. So, Maru, he won DreamHack versus Solar 4-1. The one loss was with a Cyclone build. Maybe Maru doesn't go Cyclones. Yeah, maybe it's time to go Ghosts. I don't know exactly why Maru seems to have trouble with Battle Mech. Across all of the metas that I can think of, I don't recall Maru ever being the most intimidating Battle Mech player. He might have had some periods where he was the most intimidating Terran during a mech era, so of course he was good at mech, but I think that was tank mech, not battle mech. The last time battle mech was really, really popular, like truly in the meta, not some like weird week where they're really good, you know, was actually like 2020. And even then, it seemed like it was for certain going to be the way Terran was going to play at Katowice that year, and then literally the qualifiers leading up to Katowice were just like super mech, battle mech favored. And then Katowice was there, and then no one played it. And it's still one of the most bizarre things I've seen. But anyway, Maru wasn't one of those guys playing Battle Mech, as far as I can remember. So I don't know what it is about him and Battle Mech not gelling, but I guess it doesn't gel. I guess it doesn't. So I don't think he'll do it this time around. We got another Reactor first opener, so the Reaper not going to be a problem for Solar. Yeah, that's what I think he was good at tank mech, and that's fine, but it's just battle mech has never been his thing. Because Maru's had to play also when, like, mech was really meta for TVZ and TVT. Like, there was a time where actually you kind of had to play it. But yeah, battle mech, not so much. Solar was really clever, before I go too much on how Maru doesn't play battle mech enough, or well enough, I guess. And more on Solar being really quite clever about that. That was a very good maneuver with the, let's say, 12 roaches that went across the map. He gave up a 4th hatchery for that. You know, if he had 12 roaches, or estimate, on the front lines, he might have been able to body block it more. He might have moved his army that was, frankly, thicker in front of the 4th base to save it. At least temporarily. And, you know, maybe that is a plan, and that's something you can do, and it's fine. But what ended up working out much better was his plan, was to send 12-ish roaches across the map to, at the very least, it would have split up the battle mech army, meaning that it would have been much easier to handle. And in that case, it led to the devastation of the 3rd. As I said, Solar had to be happy with that. It's hard to be happy when you're facing battle mech, because Solar is one of the guys who has actually publicly talked about the bug, but you gotta be happy with that result. And then, well, maybe the tinge of unhappiness as it took forever to kill the guy. 4 Marine hit squad. Get it. I wonder if Maru is always gonna do this, because the thing is, the Zerg player would have to make a good number of lings earlier on than they would usually do, because they have to make lings versus Hellions, right? But they have to make it even earlier on with a silly 4 Marine thing, and then there's no guarantee that they kill the Marines fast enough before the Hellions arrive. And then there's kind of like a damned if you don't, damned if you do situation where the lings are like, well, we should have been able to kill the Marines, and the Hellions showed up, but then maybe we shouldn't have been made in the first place, and just let the hatchery take damage. Which actually ends up being the better call. The hatchery takes about half damage, but that's fine as long as it lives. The 4 Marines actually do end up going home and providing actually a pretty serious defense. It was 5 Marines, and then it was 6, and then it was 7, I guess, in total made. Almost every single one of them have died, but they were able to just barely hold on to the choke that saved probably something like 5 SCVs going down, right? If those Marines were just non-existent, if they had died, if they'd been surrounded earlier on, if they had been elsewhere trying to track down overlords, then some SCVs go down because the wall was open. That Ling attack was also a confirmation that it was, in fact, bio. It saw the second barracks. Stim was very much real, and Marines were still being produced, obviously. Oh, Hellions find a very early on 4th hatch, but aren't feeling confident enough to try and take it down. I think they were out DPSing it, but maybe I was wrong. More barracks on the way. Maru definitely giving up on the battle mech for now, anyway. Might come again later. Scan just to take out some of these creep tumors is very annoying, but with the queens already there, very quickly replaced. Roaches are on the way for Solar, by the way. Roachborn tucked into the back of the base. That's important. Maru does not know that roaches are an option. 1-1 is on the way. This is the type of game that a Zerg player could get away with presenting the facade. I'm Lings, and presumably Banelings, because I'm facing bio and I need Banelings. Trust me, it's Lings. Trust me. And then boom, suddenly a bunch of roaches hitting a 1-1 attack. That has happened. That has happened. And this could be one of those games. Maru needs to figure out that it is roaches, and they need to figure out if it is going to be the roach all-in. But his army is not likely to do that. Usually what gets the scout is that the roaches respond, which I think will happen, actually. In fact, they're almost scanned right there. Because we don't have, I think, quite enough Lings to stop the double medevac drop with the Hellbats. So yeah, the roaches definitely have to make an appearance. Maru is going to see the roaches, go, okay, check. Now is it going to be the all-in or not? If the roaches were a surprise, if he knew it was roaches, he would not have done the push in the first place, but that push was important for the scout. Now he needs to scout if it is going to be an infestation pit or it's going to be a maxed out roach. We know it's maxed out roach. More roaches are on the way. Maru needs to defend. Maru has been very tricky to kill, whether he's going battle mech or bio. But he also has not had the best defense. I know that sounds contradicting, but thinking back to the last GSL in his game versus Rogue, he should have died. He should have 100% died. He scouted everything as well for the most part, and he still had an underwhelming defense, but his extreme greed carried him through that game. And he was greedy in this game, too. He got those engineering bays very fast. He's already halfway to 2-2. This is the greediest thing he can do, right? This time around, he does have bunkers. He figured it was going to be the attack. He's ready for the attack, about as ready as he could be. Lack of tanks, plural, is concerning because he is supply... Oh, contaminate! Nicely done. Love it. SCV's pulled over with a bunker and a tank really well positioned behind this wall of Marine SCVs. About as much as you can do. Maru going to stand his ground. 2-2 not yet done. Roaches and Ravagers breaking through at this point, inching closer to the tank. Corrosive Bowels barely missing it. Second tank does appear, but it might be too late. Maru melting away under the firepower of this Roach Ravager. Needed that second tank. Needed the bunkers, probably in a better position as well. And frankly, just maybe needed to not take the engagement there. If the bunkers were here and here and they provided some SimCity, they provided some tanking, maybe. Plus second tank pops, no contaminate, maybe. But that's a lot of maybes. He perhaps should have just tried to tuck it up at 2 bases. Pull the SCVs as soon as the attack actually is very much coming. Lift it through the 3rd CC and then hole up in his natural. Instead, he loses SCVs, he loses army, and he probably will lose the game because of that. You gotta save one or the other. And he didn't save either one. And that is a bit of a choke, and the tank is getting a lot of good shots. 2-2 is also finished up, so the Marines are doing some great damage, but there just simply aren't enough of them. And that is it. Solar, with the 1-1 all in, gets 2-0. That is one of the strongest performances versus Maru ever. It is the winner's match of Group A. In the bottom left, we have Solar. In the top left, it is Rogue. Honestly, if I had predicted this group before casting it, I would have said the Terrans win. And it would have been a TVT in the finals. Actually, would it have been a TVT in the finals? Will it be a TVT in the lowers? Maru plays Protoss apparently against one man, and that man is GuMiHo. But it went really poorly last time, so I kind of hope he doesn't. Anyway, I would have thought it was the winners. Maru has a much better win record against Solar, and while GuMiHo Rogue, I guess, could go either way, I guess I still kind of favor GuMiHo. Maybe that's a little bit of just fan bias. Probably, but still. Wasn't expecting the ZVZ in the finals. Or the winners match. But here we are. Whoever wins this advances on into the round of 4. It's already the round of 8. And the ultimate goal here is to win GSL for the prize, for the prestige, and for the EWC qualification spot. Of which Maru already has one, so that's not that bad. So does Solar, right? Top 4 from DreamHack. So for that, maybe it's a little, you know, they got that comfort. So they don't have to be as nervous, I suppose. But for some of these other guys, it might be their most realistic chance to win. Global qualifiers are a common, and I'm sure everyone who has not already qualified will be trying their damnedest to win one of those, but playing online is usually not favorable. And you'll be playing against some of the other top-tier players from Europe and North America. Cue a North America joke. What top players? But seriously, it can be a little tricky. There's one thing about GSL is that it's very comfortable, I would imagine, for a lot of these people. They know almost everyone who plays in it, probably on some type of personal level as well. They know all the play styles. They get at least... I know the format's a bit different nowadays, but they have some amount of preparation. You know, I think it's just more uncomfortable to play in those global qualifiers. Anyways, it's ZVZ, and we could get some action started fairly quickly. Although, typically ZVZ does go to the 3 hatch, then we start seeing deviations. It's been a while since we've seen the 2 base Roach, which Rogue was playing a lot of versus Terran, but not so much, excuse me, in the ZVZ. Why does it feel wrong that Solar's in blue? Because it's like the sun and it's red? I don't know. Anyway, Solar getting a little scout in the 3rd hatch. Of course, his Overlord could also see that once it has actually made its way across, but it is still making its way. Bailey nests for both players as well, and a good amount of lings. Good amount of lings coming out from Solar. Just a few more than what Rogue is throwing out. Maybe a little more pressure. Solar is losing those lings on the front line, or they're being tracked, so there's not going to be that opportunity to try and hide a couple of banlings, try and get the ball rolling on some pivoting attack. So I'm not thinking it's going to be very difficult for Rogue to respond. In fact, Rogue sees the amount of lings and says, okay, I might need a few more, but he really does only need a few more. Very small differences here. It's more about who's, I think, tricking who into not making drones as fast as possible. Evolution Chamber comes down much faster for Rogue. Solar goes for the Roach Warren. Once upon a time, when ZVZ was more played, and I would say a little more figured out, like there was a greater chance of just kind of a solid macro game between the 2 players. An Evolution Chamber first was usually a good idea, because if you're going to go into a macro game, having the upgrade much faster than your opponent, boom, you set yourself up into the mid game even better, right? ZVZ is hardly about that. ZVZ is not necessarily about the early game, Ling Baneling. We don't see swells of those anymore. It's also not really necessarily about the mid game. I would call it a matchup that is very focused on early to mid. It is some of these hatchery all-ins. It is mostly the hatchery all-ins, it feels like sometimes. Maybe a couple of layers, but then you get killed by a hatchery all-in and you're like, I'm never going to layer again. So it's a lot about that. And we're getting close to that point. So +1 missile is coming down for both players. This would be funny if I just predicted all of this and then it's just actually a macro game. Fuck you guys. We don't have a layer quite yet for Rogue, but if we do have a layer from him, then it actually could be a rare instance. No, it's not going to be a layer from him. Rogue is going to make a bunch of army. Rogue is going to successfully block out those lings from making it to the natural, as well as dodge. Yes, that was Rogue's Baneling, so that was important. Solar just not letting his own Banelings do anything, so there was nothing opportune right there. But there's been non-stop roach production from our boy in red, so he's absolutely going to go for a big attack. So that earlier +1, as I was saying, back in the day, maybe just meant, hey, I have a faster upgrade, I can get started on +2 much faster as well. Now it's far more likely it's still going to be some type of all-in, and it absolutely is. So Solar, if he read this, is like, this is 2022, I guess. He's just going to macro. He'd be totally wrong. Totally wrong. There is a 14 drone difference right now. Solar is building army, but he has not confirmed. I mean, his link saw a good number of drones the 3rd and did not get into the natural. That's right, the queen blocked it. Okay, yeah, so he actually doesn't know. He doesn't know it's an all-in. And as unlikely as it seems nowadays that ZVZ is going to go into a macro game, there is always that chance, and you do not want to fall behind drone-wise if it is a macro game. But you also don't want to be 13 drones ahead if it's not. And Solar is going to have a decent bit of trouble defending against this. He's got a 20 supply deficit. Spinecrawler is only just now coming down as Rogue races across the map with roaches and lings. Banelings are going to be formed here for Solar. Kill out those lings, reduce chance of being surrounded, but then also some effectiveness against the roaches. If they get big hits and big, splashes of roaches, that's still something. Spinecrawler is still forming. 1 in the natural, 2 in the 3rd base. There's the push. Rogue gonna go in. Banelings right now trapped behind everything. Corrosive Vile's also hitting a lot of Solar's roaches as Solar did not make any Ravagers of his own. Rogue, though, not seeing a perfect opportunity, is going to respect this a little bit, but I think he's got a really good chance of winning right now. He's got a now almost 30 supply lead. Going to push in, take care of that one Spinecrawler, no problem. Careful of the sandwich, which you should always respect, but I think he'd be fine anyway. So many Ravagers available, so many Corrosive Viles that Solar has to dodge away. Effectively crowd controlling his own roaches. Spinecrawler is trying to move, but one was killed. Oh, one was not moved. The other one might not be that helpful. Some Broodlings trying to help out as well. And now we do have those drones pulled. We did have some to lose, but not this many. Solar losing the drones, losing the army fight, and losing this game. It's all in city. All in. Rogue takes game number 1 with a cleverly disguised all-in. Made sure to send those drones to the 3rd. Keep it hidden as long as possible. And Solar, without that confirmation, does not want to fall behind in the drones in case it is a macro game. It just, it wasn't. So, GG's. And game number 2 is going to be on Incorporeal. In bottom right, it is Solar. Top left, it is Rogue. Can't blame the map makers on this one. It is a pronounceable word. Just not one often said unless you're a maybe Warcraft commentator. Or nope, that's pretty much it. Maybe a ghost hunter use this word a lot. I don't know. So they're going for the I suppose optimized version. We're going for like the maybe it's called the old-fashioned version of the opener at this point. Not much more to that first game that I can talk about anyway. I mean, Solar tried to get some scouting, even tried to get some pressure. He was actually so close to getting the scout into the main base, which if one Ling had gotten in there and it just literally got one scout, I'm not sure that's really that big of a difference. Because at that point, Rogue probably hadn't needed to transfer the drones at that point. The 3rd hatch was only just up and running, so one Ling would have been killed, and then he wouldn't have really any idea. Maybe it would have seen a later lair. I'm not quite sure about the timing, but I'm not sure. But let's say all the Lings got in. If Rogue did not block that queen, and 10 plus Lings get in, then they're going to be running around, buying a lot of time, kind of getting further and further confirmations on more units being produced out of the larva. Still no lair, you know. And then causing that much chaos also would have made Rogue's attack less lethal. But Solar seems to be in ZVZ when one person all-ins you before you all-in them. If that was the plan. The change is to just all-in them faster as well. Not so fast as to ever do a Ling-based all-in. It really seems like that's out of fashion. The good old Ling swell, hope to catch them off guard, hope to catch them, you know, before their banelings are made or their banelings aren't microed properly. Does not seem to happen very often in the pro games. If you're playing ZVZ on ladder, I'm sorry. It sucks. But then playing Zerg on ladder kind of sucks overall, doesn't it? Yeah. Poor Zerg players. Speed is on the way for Rogue. Solar is actually much later to his gas. Much, much later. And he's still chilling on it. He's like, do I need gas? What is this going to lead into? Lings are body blocked by the queens, but the second Ling just barely skirting around. You know, third drone was added. Either because that is the timing of the build, or because that's a trick. I think it might be the timing of the build, actually. But what it saw, most importantly, was that the spawning pool was not wiggly jiggly. So that means Solar's speed is not on the way. What else could be doing with the 150 gas? You can click on your opponent's gases, you could know that. He's going to go into that lair very, very quickly. Evolution Chamber and a Roach Born on the front lines. I was saying this doesn't seem to be happening much more in ZVZ. Here it is. The 2-base Roach wall off on the front. This could lead to many different things. Many, many, many things. This could all, for Rogue knows, be a hatchery all-in. Especially because he hasn't scouted even a follow-up yet. But this could be a hatchery all-in. This could be a fast spire. This could be a, Roach speed all-in. This could be a Nidus Worm. I think that's kind of it. But that could be any of those options. And scouting exactly what it is pretty difficult when the wall is here. A Rogue didn't cancel his speed. Just gonna try and, match the Roach Warren. Third hatch, obviously, for Rogue gives him better mining if he had as many drones. But that would be the difference here. Solar, more heavily on the mineral economy. And just more drones with that. He's in a pretty good position. Rogue is... I feel like Rogue is he's gonna all in. Okay, but it's nowhere close to the +1 Carapace. So this might be a response to what he's seeing. But I don't think I like it, because Solar, yes, he is ahead 10 drones. If he does build non-stop roaches at this point, I feel like he would have a really good chance to hold. The Overseer of Solar is, well, obviously a great addition, is that much faster scouting from the faster lair. Sees the incoming attack as soon as possible, but Solar was already building army. Cancels the third hatch. Not going to happen. And he's going to hole up in his natural. Now, the difficulties of holding here is that your Roach Warren is vulnerable. Your +1 could be vulnerable too, technically, although I think that will finish. But you got the choke on your side. You got faster reinforcements as well. And Rogue's army supply is actually not that much bigger. Rogue kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, the time at which he could kind of... And he is hitting with +1, so this actually did time out, but... The time at which this hits just did not seem favorable from the get-go. Like, the drones that Solar got, already, that investment paid off. He already is able to afford a lot of roaches. And Ravagers and Queens. And Transfuses could be very, very helpful here. Roachborn already being built in the main base, knowing that this will go down. That +1 missile did finish as well. And Rogue is in some trouble. He is behind 8 drones, although his third hatch is done. So if he goes back into drones, he will be able to saturate more appropriately, faster than Solar can. That might be the play here, as Rogue is also getting a lair. +1 missiles on the way, but he's still getting a lot of units. He's going to go for the surround. A 10 surround, partial surround. I'm not sure that's going to be quite good enough. Corrosive Piles trying to hit the heart of the army. A little split there at the last second from Solar. Transfuses are gone, but they were helpful. And the roaches are left over. Clearly enough that Solar is able to hold, and the 18 army supply lead could actually go for a counterattack. This is when Rogue needs to build more army instead of those drones that would have caught him up to the drone count of Solar. If he does build the drones to catch up to Solar's drone count, then he might be vulnerable to the counterattack. Solar with a good hold. And I feel like just... I don't know if it's like a better build is the right way to call it, but it just felt like a more secure build. Rogue didn't quite hit fast enough to really punish Solar's additional drones, and the later attack wasn't very powerful because he was on such a low drone count. You know, it was not in that real sweet spot you want to hit to actually kill your opponent. Rogue does manage to almost match up the drone count. Almost. He does have slightly better mining. You can see in the numbers right here. So that's the good news. The proper saturation that's going down. But he's still way behind in that army supply. A lot of Lings being tucked over on the left side. Is going to try and make a comeback happen. These Lings can buy time by going for a run by. They could maybe grab a third hatch, making Solar into a more all-in position. They could also try and get us around, which is still helpful, even though they aren't going to last very long. And there's that third hatch hits. The Queen's going to go down. Solar is a little out of position. Some units responding. And I don't know. Does Rogue click this down? Rogue will click this down. 100%. Yep, definitely. Yep. Little body block attempted as Solar wants to punish this, but the hatchery went down with very few Ling losses. I mean, 72 overall sounds like a lot, but I'm pretty sure that was well worth it there. Maybe half of the Lings that started that attack are able to leave. And Rogue, knowing that a counterattack could happen at this point, maybe it's not a counterattack, but knowing an attack could happen, trying to posture himself as good as possible. Actually, he's just going to go to further all-in. Because he hasn't droned at all. He hasn't gotten really any technology, except for Roach Speed, of course. Tumbling Claws, +2 missile, and Burrow on the way for Solar, which sometimes that's a little too much. That's the investment that maybe doesn't pay off, but +2 missile is finishing. And while Burrow and Tumbling Claws might not be heavily used here, it's going to ensure that if Solar holds, he'll have a very strong counterattack. And the army supply still favors Solar. Yep, Rogue's second all-in, if you will, does not look destined to work out. He does catch the Ravagers perhaps a little awkwardly, but his own Ravagers now very vulnerable as the Roach line got thinned out so quickly. And Solar will take game number 2. GG's. And now game number 3. Top right Rogue, bottom left Solar. So Rogue sets up for a +1 Carapace attack, which I'm just going to be honest, I'm not sure is always off of that low of a drone count. 35, is it? It might be, but the best way I could describe it is that it didn't hit the right timing. It wasn't early enough to punish Solar's additional drones, and it wasn't late enough or powerful enough to actually kill Solar, because it had started being built off of such a low drone count. It just felt like one of the worst possible scenarios, almost like a build order loss, but not quite confident enough to say that exactly. It just did not seem very good, and Rogue was reeling from it ever since. Although the Lings were always a good addition, and I am sure there have been comebacks in similar positions. I think that's more so on the winning player making mistakes, rather than the losing player actually doing something magnificent. So now we get into game 3. Everything on the line, although they do have that backup decider match to go down to if one of these guys loses, and one has to. Is it going to be Rogue? He is going to go for a very early pull with gas. Still grabbing a hatchery, though, so the Overlord is not going to be able to find this out. It's going to see a hatchery and check the timings and be like, oh, it's the same timing as mine. That's not a problem. But there will be a lot of Lings. I'm wondering if Rogue... So he shows... Wait, does he have to show these? Okay, so he sends Lings across the map. But he should know the timing in which the Overlord will appear. And then does he hide more Lings? Is my question. So apparently around like 155. Oh, whoa. Okay, no, those are drones transferred. I was like, he's not going to pull drones. That doesn't make any sense. All right. Very clever. Very clever. This is exactly what Solar is doing. This is exactly the build that you would do down to the drone pulls if you were actually playing a macro game. Very clever. Clever boy. And those Lings are now being holed up in the main base. The Lings that were sent across the map just waiting patiently to be the surprise. Because, you know, the Lings are seen at this point, by the way. But that's okay, because spawning pool is done for both of them. But when Rogue sends all of his speedlings across the map and Solar goes, oh shit, that'll already be too late. There will already be a good number of speedlings on Solar's side of the map. I don't see how Solar holds this. Here we go. Speed is done. Lings appear. Solar goes, oh shit! One queen already surrounded. That is already devastating. Oh, you need those 2 queens to block the ramp. And that's the beginning of the hold. Morlings obviously on the way as that hatchery is the target. Baneling Nest is formed. Solar's hope here is to, well, let the hatchery go. You can't save it. But then get a counterattack going. But his own speed is so late. He prioritized the +1 melee that he was getting. He was getting that. He canceled it. He was prioritizing that over speed. If he had 330 speed, which is the normal speed timing, a counterattack would be hopeful. But at this point in time, he's just hoping to try and defend and keep the drones alive. 24 of them still alive. 21, 20... Maybe. But the queens are also going down. Queens are going down. Drones are still in trouble. Spinecrawler is still not finished. And the queen! Oh my god, the queen! Oh, it finally goes out. 1 second too long on the mineral walk. I didn't actually body block those lings. The tiny differences that do matter. But this is still an interesting game, I would say, because it is still 20 drones to 12. But 2 hatcheries, better mining, eventually. Also more larvae. And without a queen, we don't have the inject even going into the main base. So the long term seems very favorable. It's a rogue here. Speed did finally finish for Solar, by the way. Ended up not mattering so much, I suppose, on the timing as far as the counterattack potential, just because it took that long to actually defend. But at this point, you can't counterattack because you don't have that many units left over. You can't make that many units. You don't have injects. You don't have 2 hatcheries. So counterattack definitely not possible. And Solar was just hoping to save as many drones as possible. Because if he had 24 drones still, somehow he saved every single one. You would think, you would wonder, like, does that actually manage to kind of equalize things? By the time Rogue is able to actually get enough drones to saturate his own 2 bases, Solar second base will be done and he will have enough drones to saturate it, you know? But I don't know, because he did lose 6 drones. So he's at 25, actually. I don't know. I can't say what would have happened in that scenario. I can say right here, right now, Rogue is mining much more. And Solar, his inevitable transfer to the hatchery, once it finally is complete, will be not as full as it could have been if he had saved every single drone, which I don't see how he could have, but throwing out the possibility. And Rogue's just going to get further and further ahead, feeling so safe and secure with speedlings hovering around the map, knowledge that his opponent couldn't even make an army even if he wanted to. Rogue has been able to drone. Third hatchery attempted to be faster than his opponent, so Solar is, well, first of all, out of larva, maybe. Maybe that's another reason he starts banking enough money to get a third hatchery, but also might have actually intentionally cut drones to grab the third hatchery. Just, again, trying to maybe catch up in some way as far as the mining that is efficient as you look more into the mid-game, because he's not catching up on the mining in the early game right now. Okay, that's something. Solar does get into the natural and into the main, so that's going to be a good scout for him. Unfortunately, while information is a good portion of StarCraft, there's still only so much you can do with that information. Actually, he wins the battle up there, too. This queen, I don't think dies, especially because drones could be pulled if it really was in trouble. Actually, it might die. No, it is going to die. Okay. The drones were not pulled. Rogue did not think that was going to go down, and he was too preoccupied trying to make sure that no more lings got in. So 2 drones do end up going down. A third drone goes down. The comeback is real. Oh, it's happening. I wonder how much that was affected by the +1 carapace already being done for Solar. Layer's almost done for Solar as well, as he has chosen to simply stay the course. You know, not really invest a lot into army. He did make a couple extra lings and a couple of banelings too, but he didn't try and all in off of this, which I just don't see a world where that would have worked. So he just stays the course, grabbed that faster third hatch, and now the drones are actually even. Rogue started to build an army, but not that much of an army. And then he lost a couple of drones too. Like, this is definitely playable. I mean, surprisingly playable. Solar's going to have an upgrade lead. And now Solar even has more drones. And I guess Rogue didn't really push the drones as much as he could have. His own third hatch was much, much later than Solar. And he also didn't all in, which would have been the other option for him. A follow-up attack from him at some point might have been very difficult for Solar to hold. Solar was trying to stay the course. Like, maybe that actually would have worked, but hard to say. Solar could have gotten a whiff of it and then actually defended, maybe, you know. But it seems like everything is equalized. Solar perhaps taking a few more risks to make sure that he would survive at minute 9, which is where we're at right now, and be in a good place at minute 9. And then maybe was vulnerable at minute 7, 6, 8, whatever it was. But he has done the right things to bring this back. Let's check the income graph, actually. Yeah, there's definitely like a pretty considerable income gap for a while. I feel like this is going to take another look in like an analysis replay situation to see exactly what happened, but Rogue, if he's thinking it's going to be an easy game, he will be wrong about that. The upgrades, like I said, we're going to be at least even at this point, since Rogue did invest into a second evolution chamber. He's going to catch up on the Carapace, but pretty even on that +2 missile. And through a very, very early, very dedicated attack, we have gotten ourselves into a mid-game ZVZ. Burrow and Tunneling Claws are on the way. Roach, Overlord drop on the way as well. For the Roach drop, I guess I could have put it that way. And the Roach drop heading into the main. Well, an attack threatens the main, the third, and then maybe Tunneling Claws the natural. That's a triple whammy that can be very difficult to deal with. Solar does seem very aware of this possibility, as well as the possibility of a Nidus Worm, which is why he's left one Ling over on that right side. Overlord's otherwise covering middle of the map, all now with the Overlord's speed, or at least Rogue is. Solar needs to be a little more careful about the corrosive bile issue. Rogue's Overlord is seen by the Overlord, seen by the Roaches. Everything sees it. And you'd think there'd be a response. I'm not sure. Maybe Solar didn't see it. Well. It's very possible. It was definitely seen on the minimap, but seen by the person is another question. That main base could be a cause of some trouble. It looks like Solar just seconds behind on the ideas is really what mid-game ZVZ does with the Tunneling Claws and the Overlord drop. Seconds behind on it. He's going to go for it as well, and Rogue also might not be noticing it in time. Here come the 4 Roaches, able to one-shot a drone. Very quick pull away there from Solar. Well, nothing else is threatening him at this point, so this is a pretty easy response right now, but as Rogue sends his army across the map, Solar's going to have a tougher choice here. There's the Tunneling Claws to the natural as well. Not a hit on the third, but a hit on the 4th base. Either way, Solar has to split quite a bit, but ditto on the side of Rogue as Ling's it into the main base. Rogue's going to go ahead and let that be covered by just a handful of Roaches, focused primarily on the attack on the front lines. He should have a few less Roaches, just because some of them are being used in the natural in the main, but it looks like that's still a lot of units on the front line. Rogue is going to be able to take that hatchery. At least he would be able to if he focus fired it, but now trying to protect his Ravagers as Solar saw the opportunity, jumped on top of them, but that actually favors Solar. Solar thought that he found the weak underbelly of the army, but he didn't have enough of his own army here to actually capitalize. Now it comes forward after handling the main and natural, and maybe this will be enough. They're going to focus fire on the Ravagers, nicely done, but Rogue is going to rally in here. He's not bothering to handle the natural, much at all. Just a couple of units there, but it looks like he does choose right. He is winning on the front lines. If he continues pressuring, he will get the 4th base. There it goes, and he will be able to kill all of these reinforcing Roaches, which Solar is running in one by one into their deaths. Solar, he had too many Roaches covering the natural by the looks of things, which, I mean, this is very difficult to do. He would have had to send basically the exact same amount of Roaches as his opponent. And then if his opponent is shifted on the drones, that might still mean a lot of drones go down. It was going to be a very difficult position to hold that Solar could not hold, and that is going to be it. Rogue wins game 3. And we'll move on to the semifinals, where Solar now awaits the winner of GuMiHo versus Maru. It is the losers match. In the bottom left, it is GuMiHo. In the top right of Ultra Love, it is the Terran Maru. Last season, GSL, Maru played Protoss versus GuMiHo, and it was a disaster. It was not good. It is known that Maru plays Protoss at a very high level, but it's one of the best representations of what I always say, which is you can play an absurdly high level of an off race, it still will feel like you're off race. There's just something about it. Clem is getting closer and closer to, you know, proving that wrong, I suppose. But for the most part, even if someone plays 6,800 MMR, I don't know, with Protoss, with their Terran, like when you see them play it in a tournament, it'll look like they're just a 6,800 Protoss. You know what I mean? There is a really big difference between ladder and competitive. And that I think is doubly so for these, you know, 0.001% of people that always practice against each other, always play against each other. It's insane. So I'm glad to see that Maru's not doing it, but the reason that he would have done it is because Maru's win record against GuMiHo is surprisingly low. Despite Maru still being one of the best TV tiers, even when he was unquestionably the best TV tier, there was one man who could actually take wins, and it was GuMiHo. Beyond pushed him to his limits, didn't quite get the wins. Cure, ditto. Innovation, at a time. TY was the only one who did that before that. But then there was GuMiHo after TY. And so that's why he did it. But I think he agreed that wasn't really pretty. I'm not going to do it again. Let's just play TVT. Well, the reward for playing TVT? Ha! You get 2 racks, sucker. Good news is Maru did scout it. Maru was going to go for a 1-rack expand, as evidenced by the lack of second gas. This is the awkward moments of defending a 2 racks, but with such an early scout, that was just the, you know, like, let's check over to the left, check over to the right. Scout, you should be able to defend this. Your build is off. I think your counter isn't really, it doesn't exist really, but you will be able to defend against it. And GuMiHo, obviously, he saw that he was scouted and probably hasn't put much stock into this. He would have to win hardcore on a Reaper micro battle to win. Which could happen. Yoinks. That was a very low Reaper that was barely saved. The bunker definitely helps, but a couple of Marines can provide that steady DPS, as long as they're able to catch up to the Reaper fight, you know? Standing on the high ground, these things will eventually accumulate in number to be able to beat the Reaper numbers of GuMiHo, alongside the Hellions being produced, of course, because GuMiHo is still producing Reapers, so he wouldn't only want Marines against that. What is soon to be 6 Reapers, but Marines, a Reaper, a Hellion, high ground advantage, should do the trick. A couple SCVs also pulled for good measure, which is pretty necessary, actually, for the beginning of the defense. 2 SCVs lost, kind of what you got to give up for it. Second Hellion should secure this as far as the high ground goes. Going into your own choke and to the low ground is still a bit questionable. GuMiHo would know that, so he can just wave his hands in front of his brother's face and be like, you can't touch me. That would be a fair use of the Reapers, just stopping the command center from going down location as long as possible. Now this is interesting. Cyclone being built with the Cyclone upgrade. This is not the first time I've seen this. We do kind of have to think way back before the Cyclone was on the reactor for a long time. Now it's back in the Tech Lab. This was a thing when it was a Tech Lab Cyclone. GuMiHo was also one of the guys who did it the most, I think. This is like 2 years ago, so my memory could be hazy, but he did like this follow-up, if I remember correctly. Pair with a drop, and then you have 2 Cyclones with the upgrade. It can be a little annoying to deal with. You could just rush into the main as well, although with the natural, you could rush into the natural. With the natural having a ramp, that's a little less likely, but it could happen. You know, if a tank isn't out or a tank is unsieged, Cyclones can be nasty work. 3 Hellions, unfortunately, as much as they would want to go across the map and see what's going on here, they have to respect the Reaper backstab. Interference Matrix is down as well. Raven coming out. So this is all going to go to the front lines. Oh, if this doesn't already win. Auto turret's going to help out from Maru's own Raven, plus the Cyclone was just seconds away from helping out, so that's not going to do the trick. But what I was saying is that GuMiHo could send everything to the front lines and still hold on to a 2-base contain. He contained Maru on 1 base as long as possible. Now he's going to try and contain him on 2 bases as long as possible. But the third CC is coming down for both players. GuMiHo probably going to go into mech after this. Oh, little supply block. Whoops, daisy. Waiting on the command center. Maru does have a slight SEV lead, but it is very slight, and he is going to be, as I said, contained for a little while. He's also going to be facing mech. Tough decision for Maru. He knows the possibility of mech from GuMiHo. And we've seen Maru respond to mech with mech. The issue is, if the mech player is going to be kind of aggressive, there's a point where the bio player just simply doesn't have enough. Their stim isn't done, their combat shields isn't done, the critical mass of bio isn't ready, and it's not going to look pretty if it has to run into even only 3 tanks. But 3 tanks sieged in this position, imagine, 20 Marines trying to run after that. It's not pretty. So a lot of the time, unless you are in a totally neutral TVT, totally neutral, you got a couple of hits on them, they got a couple of hits on you, like, we actually will see mech as a response to mech, I guess. Although this isn't necessarily a response. Oh, it is. Yeah, he's scanned, so... Yep, that is Maru's plan. Now, Maru still has the trouble of being a kind of contained. He does want to break out of that. The Cyclone lock on the Ravens is very dangerous. God, so dangerous. These Ravens probably want to be repaired just so the second Cyclone, half a second of Cyclone lock on doesn't kill them. Barracks or GuMiHo could have gone for a plant, I think. Long before the Marines reacted, of course, but it could have just delayed a little bit further. Not going to happen. In fact, the Marines... Oh, that was a bit of a bait! He baited the Marines off to the right side. That was actually kind of cute, but the tank was there to respond. GuMiHo, do you know that it is mech? Well, now you definitely do. The barracks floats on in there, sees the 3 factories, sees the double armory, knows what's going on. Raven harassing the main base. This GuMiHo, obviously going to save those Ravens. We do have 4 Ravens. No, going on to 5. Maru's going to go Raven heavy here. 5 Ravens, 4 Maru. GuMiHo staying at the usual 3. GuMiHo also taking a much faster 4th base. Remember, he had contained Maru's 3rd, so his 3rd has been down for a little while longer, but that 4th is way faster on location. Maru's is done. If he is... carefree, if he believes that he cannot be punished for it, and he takes it immediately, then that'll be fair. But that is the question. Does Maru think that he's in a comfortable enough position to take the 4th immediately? GuMiHo certainly is in a comfortable position. He has the map control. He's got the Cyclones and the Scans and the Ravens constantly checking on what Maru is doing. He sees that it's tank-based for now, which even if it decided to unsiege and move across the map, it would take a long time, and it would be Cyclone locked on over and over and over again. Ravens coming in for the interference matrix as GuMiHo try to have a little clever tank push here. Auto turret thrown down for both parties, but one person just simply has more Ravens. Which I thought would have been a bigger difference, which actually it wasn't. GuMiHo got auto turrets and his own interference matrix, which meant that he actually is able to stick around just that little while longer. Finally pushed back. 6 Ravens now for Maru as he finally stops producing them. GuMiHo lost 1. Ravens are obviously very good. It's kind of a tricky thing to get a lot of them very early on. I mean, if you're facing a bio player, that can just bite you in the butt because then you'll be running around so much. The Ravens get miscontrolled, but then obviously even in bio versus bio, eventually mass Raven can be a strategy. But that's also because sometimes bio versus bio late game TVT does go more mech versus mech. The tanks are produced, the Libras are produced, the Vikings are produced. I think at this point, it's just a choice. It's just a choice that Maru is making. Is it the more effective choice? I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to say that 6 Ravens actually is better. 6 Ravens, perfectly utilized, doing all the things they possibly could. Okay, they're pretty good. But is that always going to happen? Not usually. Oh my god, cat. Stop. Apollo's being needy. GuMiHo still has a little more of that map control, so he is going to go for the 4th base on location as well as the 5th on location as Maru plays a... I mean, I don't think he's not confident. I think he just knows that he's in the position that he is, which is more defensive, so he's playing the smart game, I guess. He is a little behind, and he kind of has to accept that. Trying to make moves against your opponent at this point might not go very well. That's what the medevacs were for. I was wondering what they were for. We got some, like, Brood War TVT shenanigans going down. Auto turrets will help clear this out. The medevacs should probably skedaddle, but it looks like GuMiHo trying to get his army in position. That's why he's not bothering to micro that natural, which doesn't actually get totally cleaned up, by the way. And GuMiHo, oof. He has found Maru completely out of position. Maru did not see the attack incoming, did not reposition his own units to stop this from getting in between his natural and 3rd. That is devastating. It's not that Maru couldn't have stopped this, forced a siege up, forced a stalemate somewhere else. He just had no idea it was on the way. And the tanks, well, medevac drops being used as well to take out the tanks. Some of the Cyclones of Maru are still here, which are very effective against this, but he's just losing so much control over his own bases. Maru getting out of this one's going to be very difficult. Now, Maru is grabbing a couple of Liberators, hoping that that will dislodge the tanks, but GuMiHo kind of already ahead of him, just now producing those Vikings that'll help take down the Liberators as well as bully back the Ravens. The Ravens really want to get behind this, get a bunch of interference matrix, get a bunch of auto turrets. And GuMiHo's Vikings are basically supposed to stop that from happening. GuMiHo very comfortable on 5 bases, by the way. He might have been behind in upgrades. I know that maybe someone's noting that. But when it comes to mech versus mech, I mean, that sometimes doesn't matter. Just frankly, the amount of damage that comes out, but then also positioning still being so critical. 1-1 is now finally done for GuMiHo anyway, as he decides to bust into this 3rd CC with a little bit of battle mech coming out, a little more mobile, a little more just, you know, overwhelming. And eventually that 3rd will fall. Maru knows that there's very little chance he's going to get out of this. There's no trick to defeating this, or suddenly he can make up for the lost supply and mostly the lost positioning. And he was only down 15 army supply. That's not terrible, but when it's in the position that it is, yes, it is. Maru is going to try and go for one last hurrah, try and bust out and hope that a counterattack can cause some serious damage, but his command center is falling. His 4th command center is also going to fall. He scanned GuMiHo's 4th and knows that he's in deep shit. There's his breakout. Interference measures do take out most of the tanks. Maru is going to be able to break out, but with 60 supply lower than his opponent. It is a lot in the SCVs, to be fair. Maru losing 63 of them. As GuMiHo tries to respond, he will not be able to tackle that many tanks that are left over. GuMiHo will need to add on his own tanks. Battle mech is great for picking off tanks that are really spread around too much, but it's not good for taking a direct fight. It is also, the other thing it's good for, stopping a push. Just, Maru will have to siege hop throughout the entirety of the map. Oh my god, they took out so many of the Ravens as well. So, okay. GuMiHo wants to keep building Cyclones, fair enough. Maru also going to build Cyclones, hoping to get more of that mobility involved. But it looks like GuMiHo's supply is just still too good, even though it's really in the army supply again. And this is perhaps where those upgrades are really making an impact. 2-2 versus 1-1 at this point. Maru making this look a lot closer than it ever should. Vikings actually miscontrolled, I believe. I don't know if they were trying to sack themselves for the Raven, but they didn't. Didn't kill it. I think it was just miscontrol. GuMiHo might have had a faster expansion process, but his bank wasn't that much bigger. Resources lost, not that different. It's just that GuMiHo, they didn't actually accumulate that much of a bank. And now he's in, oh boy, the tiniest of trouble. I think very, very tiny. GuMiHo looks like he is going to make a stand here. 7 tanks are on the way, and that should do the trick as Maru's tanks unsiege, getting obliterated. Yep, wasn't in trouble at all. GG's. GuMiHo. Game number 1 to him. Game number 2 is going to be on Tokamak. Bottom left, GuMiHo. Top right, Maru. Maru has trouble against this guy. You might say, well, he went mech, and that's an uncomfortable position for Maru. Kind of. I was just talking about it earlier. He actually has some history of being very good at tank mech.
Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
It's battle mech that kind of, I think it doesn't quite gel with him as much. Thank you, Kiwi, for the 27 months. And we did have a little bit of that shown in the last game. That's not really what killed him. Maru was sort of forced to play a very defensive position. GuMiHo's 2 racks obviously forced them into defense. Then the Cyclone with the upgrade follow-up forced defense. Then there was just to kind of contain that. Maybe that's where you could start to say Maru should have done this, Maru should have done that. But it was just tough. It was tough. He never got that prime engagement where the 6 Ravens really got to shine. I thought they would when he took out the 2 tank push, and they didn't. They didn't. It was actually a very fair trade, and I think it was more supposed to be a complete stomp with that many Ravens. And then from there, GuMiHo obviously had expanded on location, taken all the control of the map to his favor, and pushed without Maru ever knowing. And that's what really killed him. Because Maru's supply wasn't that different. If he had seen it incoming, he would have unsieged his tanks, prepared his Ravens, done other things you need to do, I guess. And then he would have at least had a bit of a stalemate, maybe in the middle of the map. And that game's going on for a long time after that. The GuMiHo liked that 2 racks opener so much, he's gonna do it again. Just fucking do it again. This time around, on the left side, maybe a little less scoutable than the previous version. But if Maru was doing the SCV scout left to right, I think he would see it. It's just that he's not doing it because he's factory expanding. So again, that first game, the first few minutes, it was awkward. It wasn't game ending, but it was awkward because Maru 1 racks expand. And then it was 2 racks. That command center might go down. Maru, now knowing what it is, needs to prioritize keeping his own Reaper alive. Not like this, Maru. Not like this. Not like this! Uh-oh. At least kills the other Reaper. But it's still... Oh, no, don't lose this Reaper. Don't lose it. No! Uh-oh. This is very bad news. He no longer has Reapers. He's only going to have a Hellion. That doesn't actually take out 3 Reapers. Command Center had to be canceled, I think regardless. That was inevitable, but I'm much more worried about the main base now. SCVs have been pulled. You definitely need this. Reapers need to be denied an opportunity to concave. But that supply depot missing. Still a little scary. Oh, good focus fire. Good focus fire on the weakened Reaper. Takes out one of them. Okay, Maru's not going to die. That's the good news. But he is going to fall behind. As GuMiHo's command center. He's being put down on location. Maru's is replaced as I'm speaking, so it's not that far behind as far as being built, but getting on location might be an issue. 1 more Reaper being made. That was a total of 5. It was a total of 6. Math. But thankfully, Maru was able to get some revenge. If he had not killed any Reapers, this is probably game over. That would have been too big of a snowball. I don't know, I like that Reaper Grenade. I don't think we need Spider Mines in StarCraft 2. Cyclone medevac action here from Maru, which the Barracks Scouts is going to see. GuMiHo... I was wondering if he would need his Reapers back at home for this. I think he does, just because the Hellions are also going to come across the map. You know, if he didn't, then maybe he lets those Reapers threaten the backstab, but yeah, it'd be a bit risky to do that. Command Center done now for GuMiHo. 3rd gas has to be taken quite quickly. 3rd CC is on the way from Maru, as he looks to get ahead in at least 1 department. GuMiHo's 3rd CC is about to come down, though. There it is on the top. And Maru knows he was scouted, but you can't not try to apply some pressure after getting the medevac. I feel like it's very dangerous. Your opponent is going to have 2 Cyclones, possibly, and that is the case here, by the time you go across the map, and that could kill your medevac before you get to react, so... It just sucks. It just sucks that you can't do anything with it, I guess. Yeah. GuMiHo probably counting the seconds, wondering if it is going to attack. Tick tock, tick tock. Nah. Not going to happen. It's a fake. It's a scout. Double engineering bay from Maru. He's not going to try and play mech again, even though it is likely that GuMiHo plays mech too. I mean, maybe likely is a strong word. GuMiHo is not an only mech player, and we see, oh, that's a reactor. So I think he is playing mech. Yeah, he is going to play mech. But this is, I'm not going to call it a neutral game, because it's not. Maru is behind by 4 SCVs, his third CC. If it gets out on location, would be maybe a bit faster, but I mean, hopefully he takes it immediately. That medevac did escape after a very small scout. In fact, did not see the third CC. What it saw was a barracks with a reactor. I wouldn't say that's actually the timing that which tells you that it is or is not factory, just because that could be swapped onto a factory, but actually it was swapped onto a starport lickety-split. That's interesting. It is going to be bio, and that scan just confirms it. Although it would be really confirmed. Oh, well, I kind of saw the barracks coming back home. Yeah, I was going to say, what is the point of the starport reactor that quickly? You could have gotten stim much faster. I wonder if he was thinking of doing a Viking push before going into bio. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he mistimed the barracks flying home, and then it was awkward. I don't know. But the point is, it is bio versus bio. And Maru should believe that, because it actually is that case. You know, Marine tank versus Marine tank, you might say this is where Maru is favored. GuMiHo is not doing mech. He's not doing anything tricky. Things are even enough that we believe in Maru's comeback potential. Sure, totally. But this is still a game where GuMiHo is apparently favored versus Maru. GuMiHo doesn't only win against Maru if he plays mech or if he does something a little different than other Terrans. He actually wins in straight up Marine tank versus Marine tank. So Maru has to be very, very careful. His stim, actually, even though there is the whole kerfuffle about the reactor versus tech lab issue, Maru's stim is also still a little behind. Combat shields will thus be a little behind. Engineering base were faster. So that might explain Maru's later stim. Scan confirms bio. He actually might have doubted himself. He might have. I think he saw the third CC with the first scan. Obviously now it doesn't show it because it wasn't there anymore. But he might have been wondering if that was a fake stim. Or he didn't see the third CC and was trying to. But yeah, Maru needs to know exactly what he's doing. And so far he's getting nothing but reactors, which would be what you do versus Marines. Maru is unaware, once again, that a push has made its way across the map. The Ravens could just be harassments, not a precursor to worse things. Looks like GuMiHo may be trying to... I mean, I'll obviously get some SCV damage, but maybe also try and put them in a position. Almost loses a Raven for it, because there's a very clever missile turret. Maru totally anticipated this. Hellion is used to deny the fourth for a little while, but the fourth being on location, does that trigger Maru to do something? It looks like it does. He's going to push across the map. Still totally unknown that this army was over on his side. But it decided not to do anything. And now GuMiHo is repositioning. Maru is down about 10 army supply, down 4 workers as well. Neither player with combat shields. Upgrades are even. 3 Ravens to 3. 1 tank more for GuMiHo, but he's tracking the army at this point. This could get very ugly. This could actually get very weird. GuMiHo, he scans the army, clearly heading to his 4th base, and I guess he's just prepared to cancel it. No, he never started it either. But if he's going to cancel it, I guess it's a good thing. He scans again, sees that the army is not responding, and Maru... Oh, he's going to go, well, lose his 4th command center, lose all of his SCVs. GuMiHo doesn't want that one anyway. Doesn't want it. Not going to cancel it. He's too busy focusing on the attack into the main base. He wants to end this right here, right now. GuMiHo going for the throats into the main base. No tanks about to pop. Nothing to help Maru, as GuMiHo was the one to initiate this. He had just that little bit of heads up. He has a tank, but it is interference matrix. 2nd tank not quite out. Production will be camped on this side as well. Good old-fashioned base trade to end this TVT. As the Marines are also anti-armor missile, they really don't be taking this fight. Maru is going after his opponent's production. GuMiHo, ditto. Who will come out ahead? Maru has 0 SCVs, officially 0. He also has almost 30 less army supply Now that's going to change in a second as Maru's army clearly going to win against GuMiHo's here. So now it's more like... No, it's still actually kind of 30, isn't it? Got some units in the middle. None of the units of GuMiHo were traded out as they attacked the main base, or for the most part. Looks like he did lose a Raven. SCVs saved. Is that the SCVs? Yep. SCVs saved in the medevac. More SCVs going to go down. GuMiHo is going to lose that significant supply lead that he has, but he still will have a supply lead. He still has 28 more army supply than his opponent. And actually, he already saved a bunch of workers, so never mind. 30 SCVs will survive. This is very GuMiHo favored. As it probably should be. GuMiHo was the one to initiate it. I mean, I still think it was a very risky call. The GuMiHo scanning Maru, willing to give up his 4th, preparing his main base, whereas Maru did not get the same heads up. It's a big difference maker. And now Maru's going to have to hope that GuMiHo messes up the engagement somehow. GuMiHo also managed to finish his 2-2. Oh no, Maru didn't. Well, that's probably it then. Yeah, oh boy, yeah, that's quite a setup there, isn't it? GuMiHo sieging his tanks in a perfect line. His Ravens were repaired, I think? They were. Oh, Maru. He's out of the GSL. No GSL for him this year. But he did win Dallas, so he's got that going for him. GuMiHo will be the one to advance to the decider match to face Solar and see who moves on to the round of 4. It's the final match here of Group A in the round of 8. In the top right, it is GuMiHo. In the bottom left, we have Solar. Maru is out. He's gone. Goodbye. As the chat said, he can win international or he can win in Korea. Not both. And since he very hardly wins in international, he usually wins GSL. But, you know, this year is the one to change. But that also means that he already has his EWC qualification spot. Solar also already has his EWC qualification spot. So the pressure wasn't there as much. Obviously, Maru still wants to win, but he did manage to face the one guy who has one of the best win rates against him, I guess, weirdly enough. I mean, it's not like they play a ton of times, and it's always a slam dunk for GuMiHo. It's just Maru having Nemesis. There we go. GuMiHo is one, and Cyril is another. And then that's kind of it. But then Maru also did not play well today, guys. Because Solar beat him as well. Very convincingly. Very convincingly. So Solar does seem to be in either good form for ZVT, or Maru was in bad form for TPC. You know. What's your preference? Not live. Yeah, I'm just responding to all the chat messages with my clairvoyance. Anyway, so Solar, okay, let's say he's in a good ZVT mood. The problem might be that he might be in a good, let's say, typical ZVT mood. Now, Maru did play Battle Mech, and Solar was very good about that, but I will go ahead and say definitively Maru's Battle Mech is not as good as GuMiHo's. It's just not. So, you know, that's not a direct comparison. If GuMiHo does go Battle Mech, I think Solar will be much more frustrated about it. And I think it would be wise of GuMiHo to go Battle Mech on that note. But GuMiHo knows what he's doing. He doesn't need my help. Command Center first coming out for GuMiHo. Very unlikely to be punished, to be honest. You can get away with that. Easy peasy. Third CC also going to be coming down. So the greediest build you can do. If this goes into a 2-1-1 with a double engineering bay first, that is the greediest build you can do. But we'll see if it's that greedy. Solar's Overlord. Very confidently running into the natural. Maybe a little too confidently. That seemed too confident. Yeah, it was way too confident. If it was a Reaper first, which, you know, a lot of the time it is, then this probably is going to live. Because the Reaper would have taken more time to build, and then the Marine would have been later. But it was a Marine first into a second Marine, which was almost specifically designed to kill the first Overlord. Solar just made it a lot easier. So Solar did miss the opportunity to see if it was the third command center, technically. Now, the starport wasn't put down, but the starport could have been here, could have been there, could have been there, who knows. It is often at the fronts. Very often at the front. So maybe Solar could read into that. maybe you don't bet like $1 million on it. You bet $10 on it. And what does that mean exactly? It means that Solar might grab a Spore Crawler or two faster than he needs to, because he didn't know if it was a starport or a third command center. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It might even be worse if it was the opposite way around, where he thought it was a third CC, but the Banshees are coming faster. Anyway. Third hatch for Solar, very typical Zerg opener, as the Banshees, yes, of course, are on the way. Solar, you know, lost that first Overlord, supply blocked him, had to remake it. Sucks for the first 3 minutes of a StarCraft 2 game. Also, now missing the Overlord Scouts later on. The Overlord Scout that sees the lack of supply depots, that says it's the third CC, which this Link probably will anyway. Okay, he sees it anyway. But then also might have been able to sneak in and see the tech lab. If the Overlord was over here, clearly it sees a third CC, no problem. And that kind of sucks. Solar's next real job here is to figure out if it is Battle Mech. As I said, Spore Crawlers might go down a little faster just because he didn't know for sure until that moment, but they will definitely be ready for the Banshees, for sure, for sure. He doesn't quite know it's Battle Mech, but it is a good guess. GuMiHo is good at Battle Mech. And so the Roachborn coming down, I believe, is a response to that. Overload speed's coming on the way, too. I wonder if he's going to all-in him. He might. If there's one way not to deal with Battle Mech, it is to kill it before it gets there. Rogue in game 1 of today's cast did a all-in, we'll call it, against GuMiHo, but it was not set up very well. I mean, it was just telegraphed so far in advance that GuMiHo, though he didn't know exactly what attack was on the way, and it looked like he guessed it was an Overlord drop attack, nonetheless, he had defenses against whether it was the Overlord drop or whatever else. He had defenses because he just knew something was wrong. This game's a little more complicated. The Banshee's going to get into the natural, sure, but it's not really going to see anything that screams attack. The Overlord is being made, so the drop is commencing. Nice call, ZombieGrub. Overlord speed that fast isn't gotten from very much else. Now, this is where things get tricky, because tanks were a perfect response against what Rogue was doing, but GuMiHo, 1, knew it was on the way, prepared defensively. 2, tanks were great against a pure Roach Hydra attack. Tanks are a little trickier against something that involves queen drops, just because the queens can drop on top of the tank. But this is a good sign for GuMiHo, as he takes care of the first wave of units to a certain degree. Like, he doesn't kill a whole lot here, but he knows it's on the way. Oh, actually, well, that might have backfired a little bit. SCVs are forced to be pulled away from the third. I like getting ahead of the push, is what I was trying to say right there. Getting ahead of the push, getting it started when it's not super, super close to your defenses. That's hopefully the way to do it. The Cyclones do need as much room as possible to micro back, but now we do have a very appropriate choke for GuMiHo to defend with. The Lings will not be able to move on through with this many Hellions. The Queens don't really want to try and drop on top of the tank. Now the Cyclones are going to be eagle-eyed, locking onto the Overlord. And now we have 2 tanks as well, which Solar, you know, if he's not going to be able to bust right on through and get on top of these tanks, he's not breaking it. So Solar knows that. He is already droning. He's already got the Devastation Pit done. Upgrades are later, so this was committed. But a third base denial, some chaos, some SCVs, save most of your army. I think it's not the worst thing in the world. Queen Overlord creep, very, very annoying, but with the Raven out, that will be cleared up pretty quickly. Third CC back as fast as it possibly can be. Triple Banshee! Triple Banshee didn't end up helping the defense. Wasn't necessary. It goes across the map. 4th base. Oh, no. A lot of freebies right there. The hatchery, it could have been a target, I think, if it was immediate, you know, but I don't know about now. Queens have had some time to try and respond. Maybe a Spore Crawler moves over, which it is necessary. Overseer is here for detection, but we just don't have enough anti-air. Actually. Nah. Banshees will not be able to target fire the hatchery, although they got it low. Not quite low enough, but you know what? They don't need to. GuMiHo Totally fine back at home, although the queens in the main base are odd to see. He's moved his army across the map and is looking to take on a Zerg player who is desperately trying to recover from the deficit, the economy that they did not build earlier on. They built an army, then they had to go back into building technology and economy, and that's what GuMiHo is trying to take advantage of right now. 2 tanks to anchor this push. Banshee still being annoying in the air. Cyclone's able to punish whenever Solar tries to retreat. Queens, by the way, were taken care of in the main. And Solar's fourth, is looking very, very low. He cannot really push in to stop this. What is going on over here, by the way? Okay. And the queen number is starting to get really scary low. There's still 2 Banshees. They're out of transfuse. Some of them are very low. Where are the rest of them? Queens aren't being remade. Solar's not thinking about it. Infestors pop out, try and help. Not even sure if it did hit a fungal. Maybe it did, but it didn't actually add in a whole lot. And Solar, even though he has 30 more supply overall, can't defend his 4th base. Prepares a 4th over to the left, but only as it died. So his mining has been severely hampered. 82 drones, not mining efficiently at all. GuMiHo, meanwhile, happy on his 3rd CC. 4th base finish, 5th and 6th on the way. A couple units left at home to help defend in case there was that little run by. Solar is in some trouble. Now, when this similar situation happened in Solar versus Maru, Solar snuck those 12 roaches across the map, and that was brilliant. He gave up the 4th for it, but it ended up being a good move. Doesn't get the opportunity to do it here. You know, and even if he did, I'm not sure it would have been as effective just with how much army was on the front lines, including some tanks, you know? What Maru had was probably half as many Hellbats, similar number of Cyclones, I suppose, and no tanks. And I just wonder if that means that the withdrawal would have been easier to take care of. Like, GuMiHo would have withdrawn, Solar would have maybe gotten the 3rd CC to lift, but then wouldn't have taken out the appropriate number of units, and then GuMiHo would have defended, but yeah. It sucks because it is an entirely defensive, wow, fast Broodlords, an entirely defensive Zerg. But this is also what Solar was planning, so that makes sense. Solar wasn't planning on a big swell of roaches, trying to hit that attack before the mech player got comfortable. He was trying to dive towards that Praetor Spire into the Broodlords. Do I like Broodlords in this situation? I don't know about that one. Broodlords might be able to stay away from the Cyclone lock-on, and that is a might. They don't add that much DPS right now, not when there's this few of them. And they're still not as mobile as Battle Mech is, so finding Battle Mech, defending against it, still be troublesome. Thors are also a really great answer, so even if you're like, well, you know, this will deal with the army if everything is fair, they're all in the right position, and the Broodlord's probably protected, you're probably right, but then GuMiHo just needs to buy time. And then he can get the Thors. And Thors are pretty good. No Parasite could be a counter to them, but we're we're not there yet. And actually, Thors are not coming out as a response anyway. It looks like GuMiHo, he saw the Broodlords, knows about them, scans how many there are, and says, I'm not that worried. Okay, no, Thors are on the way. I was like, oh, you know, it's a little risky not to go for Thors here. Because again, the army's in position, the Broods are behind them, Fungals are coming down. That's when that can be very effective. The Thors are on the way. A couple of Hydras going off to the left side. Definitely can't take care of a planetary, though. Oh, whoa. That army moved in very aggressively. What the hell? GuMiHo is on the wrong side here. He is on the Zerg side, and Solar is the one responding. Looks very odd. Tank is giving up. A worthy sacrifice. 4th base goes down. Cyclones just racing on through the entirety of the Zerg base. Not going to be punished. Some of the army that was going to go for the 4th base snipe comes back, but also, you know, going to die for it. A lot of Cyclones died, the Hellions died, but this is just buying time and causing so many problems for the infrastructure of the Zerg player. Goodbye, Hatchery. Just enough Cyclones to kill that and be able to skedaddle. Enough of them will be able to go back to this planetary, although this command center should not live. And then we also have whatever reinforcements are on the way. A couple of Cyclones, a couple of Thors. Cyclones still looking to buy him more time. It's 5 Thors on the way out. I don't know about this. I don't know. This seems like a very good mech army. Broodlords are still trying to find some damage as the Thors aren't in position quite yet, but here they come. Thors need to get away. Actually, one lock-on ends up killing a Broodlord. Only 4 of them available. Mass Hydra here. Not a lot of tanks, to be fair, but killing a planetary is going to surely be mass repaired into reinforcing mech units. Not going to be a good time. Solar, so low on cash. I mean, he couldn't just take 2 hatcheries worth of damage and say, okay, fair enough. But I'm not sure this counterattack is going to quite be it, although Thor's on the front line, not where they want to be at all. Woo, hoo, hoo, that was a save. God damn, that medevac was just as injured. We do need a couple of tanks. We do need a couple, I think. Just a handful more. And then you've got yourself an almost perfect army. +1 attack, +3 armor, because he was going Cyclones for so long, didn't prioritize the attack. Command center is going to be burned down by the Hydras. By the looks of things, no mass repair. Now the Hydras have to take care of the Hellbats and Thors chasing after them. Broodlords no longer a focus. Very clearly, one Broodlord does not help out at all. If the Hydras are not maxed out, they have only 2... Yeah, they don't have any Carapace, so they only have +2 attack. Lurkers are on the docket, but it's going to take a while for them to get their upgrades and also to get a good number of Lurkers as the last Broodlord finally falls. Now, Thors might seem like an awkward unit to have. Hey, there's no Broodlords, why do you have Thors? But to be honest, even 3-1 Thors are kind of scary. If the Hydras are able to focus fire 1 Thor at a time, beautiful. If the Thors get a concave and actually do some return damage, not as beautiful. And that's what's happening here. The Thors can definitely tank a lot. GuMiHo happily planting his 5th base back down on location because he saved it while getting an aggressively placed 6th. Blinding Cloud is effective right there. That was a nice move. A couple of Corrosive Biles, I believe, hit as well, but this is a very clumped up Zerg army. Hellbats even getting some attacks in. Cyclones getting every last bit of damage that they can. I was going to say before they retreat, but maybe they don't even have to retreat. Solar is dipping down very low in supply. No bank, no technology, and no option here as GuMiHo continues to rally his battle mech across the field. There is no answer. And Solar is getting battle mechs. GG's. Game 2, and perhaps the last game of this group. Top left of Maganatha, it is GuMiHo. And the bottom right, we have Solar. Never a super strong moment for Solar in that game, I think. You know, if his Broodlord transition either was much faster, so he could defend the 4th with it, or he didn't go for it at all, maybe there's a little more back and forth. Oh, it's a proxy. GuMiHo is sending an FPV out, you guys. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my good godness. GuMiHo gonna 2-rack Solar at the very least. He's 3-racksing. He's a 3-racks at him. He's feeling it. He's feeling it. Now, in the past, I have thought of Solar as weaker than others defending the proxy racks, but in the last 3 times I've seen him deal with proxy racks, he has dealt with them. So I think that's no longer true. It's still annoying, of course, and it still could be game-defining damage, but he hasn't died to it. But we'll see if that changes right here. JTN, thank you for the 5 good subs. GuMiHo, he's got that 1 map victory. He's got 1 to give, as they say, and he thinks the 3 racks is the way to go. This is dedicated, not technically all in, and also not as economical as a 2 racks. It sits right in the middle. But a 3 racks is supposed to do some decent damage. Solar is sending an Overlord in that direction, which it would see it. Yeah. No, why though? No. Oh, I mean, he's only going to get, like, maybe, like, a 1 or 2 second notice anyway. So, that probably didn't matter that much. In fact, it probably is better if it saves the Overlord. Yeah, it's actually probably better. Yeah, is it going to be good enough, though, as the defense still has to come down? Bunker has started. Spine Crawler has started. That is very important here. Bunker, I want to go ahead and cancel that. So there's just no amount of seconds invested into it. Lings are out. Queen's about to, well, not quite about to pop. About halfway done. Another bunker canceled. Drones looking for a potential surround. But at this point, the Marine number is so high, it's very clear that it was the 3 racks, that the drones will not do the trick. And now they are cut off. Okay, they make it, they make it, they make it, they make it. Because they are going to be needed, I think. Maybe not, maybe not. Well, they are needed. As far as drones go, you do need them. But I meant to defend the spine, but no. GuMiHo's not going to go after the spine. It finished. There were lings. There was a queen. Not going to try and snipe it. The drones go back to mining. Another spine crawler is made. Since it is a 3 racks, so GuMiHo could try and go for the blitz. Oh my god, that's exactly what he's doing. He's pulling the boys! Is it TVP? Is it? The Overlord sees this. More spine crawlers. More everything. More! More! Oh, that had a mineral in it. Oh, no, there's a mineral in it too! No! It matters. It matters so much. Well, this is very clearly all in, by the way. There's no recovering out of this one for GuMiHo. Oh, the extra 2 spine crawlers might not be fast enough. 1 transfuse on this queen. The drones have to be pulled, I think. The drones should be pulled as well. Everything! Everything has to be pulled! The transfuse comes down as the queen thought she was gonna die, but no, 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 no! Now the Marines have the choke. The SCV's protecting the Marines brilliantly. He cancels the spines. Gonna try and use the drones to help, but it's not gonna work. Oh no. Not like this. The spines will never win this game. You just ignore them. Kill the hatchery, and then, honestly, with mules. The mules will save the day. Yep, GG. GG! I mean, it was 6 workers or 0. It wasn't even about mules. GG's GuMiHo! He's got ice in his veins. And 2-0 advances to the round of 4. Him and Rogue over Maru and Solar. Man, that's not exactly how I would have predicted it, but cool results. The real problem was letting those Marines onto the ramp. That was the biggest problem.